I welcome you all, basketball degenerates, to another episode of the Pass First, Shoot Later podcast brought to you by the OC Basketball League. I am your host, Zico Pepic, here with my co-hosts, Michael Van Wyck and Omar Almadine. And today I've got a very special show for you. Two of my longtime friends, Mahroze Baloch and Ahmad Mehboom, hosts of the Fresh Jive Podcast. You guys were so generous to have me on your show. It was an amazing experience. It's an episode that should be airing sometime soon, in the future at least.
It's on Patreon already. You just got to subscribe to it.
Well, it's already on. I just didn't see it.
No, it's not out. We'll talk about that.
I am subscribed. I did right after the show. I subscribed, Ahmad. So yes, welcome to the show, Mahroze and Ahmad. Again, I've known these guys for a long time. Ahmad and I went to high school. We have really interesting history together. And Mahroze I've known for like 15 years now.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, guys. Please talk about you guys selves.
No, thank you first of all for having us on. This talk of your podcast, Zico, kind of started when we had you on, and we actually had you on for a while ago. So, and about that, your episode has not released yet. I've been trying to do some tweaks to my podcast. So, just real quick, doing this podcast has kind of been just like a passion project of mine, and just kind of like a fun hobby. And we just kind of started dabbling in it, and Zico was actually our fourth guest on the podcast, so he's actually episode number 4. I've only released 2 episodes because I want to kind of do some tweaks to it, make some upgrades. So Zico, you're actually going to be the debut episode. This is what I wanted to kind of say for the announcement for your podcast. You're going to be the debut episode for when I relaunch the podcast. So look forward to that.
I can't wait. It was actually a hilarious episode. I think we were laughing the entire time. And it's a conspiracy theory episode. And
I wouldn't say conspiracy theory per se. That was kind of a added bonus to it. It's more kind of like a profile on Zico, on you, especially
which is basically a conspiracy theory episode, right?
Yeah, I mean, we learned a lot about Zico and his conspiracy theories in that episode. So it's gonna be a fun episode for sure.
So many of them.
So many conspiracies. Yeah, tons of conspiracies. Zico knows them all too.
I'm happy to dive into a few of them today too, Zico, if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the point of today's episode. We're going to be talking NBA conspiracy theories, so yeah, I've always been a conspiracy theorist. Ahmad knows this. Like, we used to like be in class together in high school, playing Pokemon together, like analyzing the lore of Pokemon and shit like that. And so like I'd be a conspiracy theorist even back then, right, Ahmad?
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, my name is Ahmad. I've been Zico's friends before 2003.
Ahmad knows I only had like 3 friends. He was one of them.
No, yeah.
The other 2 were Pokemon.
Him and Sharif. No. I remember I love it that we had history class together. We had our Game Boys, we would trade Pokemon's battle, and we were the biggest nerds. But look at us now, we're on a podcast. Big, right? And then and of course, May is my brother-in-law's brother and be my friend since day one. And Omar and Mike Van Wyck, I seen you guys in passing, but I said what's up to you guys, but good to see you guys here, But yeah, man, I love to just talk about fun stuff. I know a lot about a little and a little about a lot, and I could go more conspiracy with aliens, as May knows.
Yeah,
but we'll get into everything and anything because there's a few aliens, living in, playing in the NBA, and as we just, I don't know, we've seen some creature that looks a lot like something from Space Jams, but we might need to get on talk about that. That wasn't on the list, but hey.
Well, you didn't see what number 1 was, so.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I left number 1 as a surprise, so we'll leave it at that until we get there. But
Ahmad, I agree with you though. There are some aliens in the NBA.
Oh, 100%, man.
This is where we're going. This is where we're going.
Kevin Garnett. Have you guys ever seen Kevin Garnett in person?
Never.
No.
Oh my God!
Well, let's not forget about the original alien in the NBA, Mr. Sam Cassell. I mean, everybody knows. Come on.
Well,
I think his nickname is the alien.
You're talking about the hooping ET, right? So we know that.
Absolutely, yes.
But I'm gonna throw one out there. I think AD is actually the soul of the kid from Chicago that passed away back in the 80s. I'm not gonna give you guys his name. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I
Oh my God, you guys
I
know
remember
basketball?
something about this, but I don't remember who it is and the story behind it.
I mean, he looks like a pharaoh to me, to be honest, like an Egyptian god.
I'm a little disappointed. Benjamin Wilson.
I remember this story. I just don't remember who it was and the details behind it, Omar.
Uh, I'm gonna just come out right now. All of this stuff, craziness.
Mike doesn't
Mike-
believe in any conspiracy theory.
That's not
Mike,
true.
just like
That's
every
not
one
true.
of our listeners thinks you're crazy.
Wait a minute,
because of your
and
stance.
they might finally agree with me on some. I'm sure there's some conspiracies. We went through the list. There's definitely some that match up, and obviously some aren't even conspiracies. They're real, but aliens, guys, come on.
Of course, Mike is going to say there's no conspiracy. He's practically a Sasquatch himself. He's part of the
He definitely has some of those genes. I mean, if you look at him, you'll notice some of them. So the characteristics and all that. So,
I mean, Mike, I mean, Maze is living proof that I haven't seen an alien, but Maze living proof that that's someone who I know that's seen an alien, and not just him and his brother, right?
So this is a little bit of a sneak peek
Yeah.
For our episode with Zico. I didn't see an alien itself. I've witnessed 4 UFOs in the sky. And
UFOs. Sorry,
yeah. So there's a big difference between actually seeing an alien and UFOs. So the UFOs I saw in the sky, and the thing is, I wasn't alone. It would be one thing if I was just by myself. My brother was right there with me, and we talk about it to this day. It happened in '96. So. I've seen them myself. And the thing is, it's such with all conspiracies, especially like, Sasquatch or aliens, UFOs, it's such an unbelievable thing. No one, you can tell somebody all day long, hey, what I saw, but until somebody sees it themselves, then they're going to finally like, okay, yes, it's real.
this is where like Mahroze and my relationship just like exploded. We became really good friends at this point because I've also seen spaceships in the sky, not just by myself, with other people. And then Mahroze and I just started like sharing like cloud formations like on Snapchat back and forth,
Yes.
Like once we like understood each other and we like explained what we had seen, which I'll leave that for the other episode because I want people to check out that podcast. The podcast is amazing. You guys have to check it out. So yeah, like I love this stuff. I could talk about this stuff all day. Mike's like losing his mind right now. He's like, why
you know what, Mike? You're not on your own. I guess I'm on your side of the fence on this one, bro.
I just want to go ahead, guys. A UFO is anything in the sky that you don't know what it is.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay. So
100% agree. By the definition, it's unidentified flying object, right?
Yep.
We don't know but the thing is, whether it's part of this world or part of that world. And just based on my experience of what I saw, I have not seen anything like it to this day. And it was not far, it was close enough. And just to tell you what I saw real quick, it was stationary in the sky, not moving at all. And there was 4 of them. They were lined up vertically and they switched into a diamond formation. And I kid you not, they all 4 moved simultaneously in 1 second out of sight, just zoomed like that. Craziest thing I've seen to this day. But like I said, it's the thing is, and Zico kind of alluded to this too, there's a big stigma around this topic, right? I've seen it in '96. I didn't share this with anybody else for the longest time because, people like, you're crazy. It's kind of such a wild thing. And the thing is, I never wanted to, I wasn't out there to kind of convince anybody else, like I know what I saw. I don't need to share it. But then I said, you know what, why am I not sharing it? I started being more open with it. And, like Zico mentioned, he's seen things himself. And by being more open to it and like kind of breaking down the stigma attached to it, like, oh, hey, this is such a crazy thing. You shouldn't even talk about it. You're finding out more encounters that other people have had that have been too scared to bring it up. So I'm telling you, we're going to see some crazy things in the next, I don't know, 4 to 5 years. People are saying disclosure is happening, but yeah, Zico, I don't want this to be an alien episode now. So
I'm just laughing because it sounds like you're coming out and you're talking about the stigma in Muslim society, and you're like the one standing there.
I'm not saying it's not impossible. I'm just saying I don't think there's any aliens playing in the NBA.
Oh no, 100%.
Yeah, that's a whole different
aspect there. That's
So I think Mike, you're just confusing the 2 different conversations.
No, I get both conversations.
Ahmad made a comment.
I'm trying to get back on track.
some real life experience.
Yeah, I know that. I can follow along a conversation.
Yeah,
No, no, no. Everybody that's been listening to our podcast knows you're delusional, especially when it comes. I'll be the first one to say it, Kobe.
Oh yeah, you're not a Kobe fan, right? Because I saw a clip that you're like, oh, you're finally a Kobe fan because you're wearing a jersey or something.
No, he wasn't. I just like screenshotted that as fast as I
Oh
could.
Lord, dude, how can you not be a Kobe fan? Come on, man.
We've been through it enough times.
gonna
Everybody
tell you,
already should know.
Mahroze, Ahmad, since
Yeah.
you guys are here, like, where do you guys rank Kobe in your top 10? Or
Oh.
outside of your top 10, if that's the case?
Hold on.
Like,
Is he in your top 10? Let's just stop there.
Kobe Bean Bryant, he's in top 2 and arguably number 1. If you have Michael Jordan in your top 3, or if you even have him top 1, Kobe is the better version of Jordan. He has a deeper bag. He's Michael. He's the better version of Michael Jordan. So if you have Michael Jordan in the top number 1, you have to. I'm not saying there's an argument, Jordan versus Kobe, who's better, right? If you have Jordan 1, you have to have Kobe number 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, me again, I'm not a big baller, this and that. I just, when I played basketball, I watched when the Lakers Kobe Shaq era. So when people ask me, "Are you a Laker fan?" I just said I'm a Kobe fan first. So that's why I have to put Kobe first, only because I wasn't exposed for the Jordan era or being able to attend a game or so. That's my only excuse to say to that. That's why I would say he's number 1, and then yeah.
Yeah, no, and Ahmad, you bring a good point too, because we're talking about different eras too, right?
Yeah.
So this is one of the big problems of comparing, Kobe, and Jordan, and making a top 10 or a GOAT ranking, right? Because you have different rules in the Jordan era, different rules in Kobe's era. I mean, what was that? The hand check and then legal defense wasn't allowed in, Michael in Jordan's era. Meanwhile, you have zone defenses and people are crowding Kobe like crazy. So there's a bunch of different things. It's hard to assess that. But what I'm looking at is from a pure skill viewpoint. Now, let's look at LeBron James, right? He's obviously in the GOAT discussion because of all of his accolades and all of the accomplishments he's made. But from a pure skill standpoint, imagine Kobe in LeBron's body and that size. That's an unstoppable machine. With that Kobe skill set, footwork, everything, LeBron's gifted with that body of his too, and that's why he's been able to do it. But he couldn't make a 3-pointer for the longest time, right?
But he improved, and he has a higher 3-point percentage this season than Steph Curry.
I mean,
you can't compare
if you take my shots, of course.
And you can't compare people's body size. I mean, if you take Kobe, Shaq, or not even Shaq, any basketball player ever who was a guard and put him in Shaq's body and say, okay, they have all the same footwork and can do everything the same. That's
100%.
His ability. That's LeBron James, who learned how to play in that body.
100%.
That size, he would have blew out his Achilles in year 2.
No.
Okay,
100%.
Mike, actually, let me chime in on that. So like you just talked about that, the body of different players, right? So let's just separate big men and let's separate guards. Okay, so we'll put perimeter players. I won't even say guards. I'm gonna say perimeter players. Perimeter players that we'd be talking about, let's say Jordan, obviously, LeBron, Magic, and Kobe. I think those are the 4 perimeter players that you probably talk about the most. The worldwide people would talk about the most. If they were all the exact same size, exact same weight, who's the best player of the bunch? Put them in order at that point, actually. Put them in order. Put them in order at that point. Who's best?
I've already put those 4 in order.
No. Now you're taking the height away from LeBron.
I don't need because they still have the same. You're not changing. You can't change.
Oh, you're not. Yeah, that's their advantage. You're the one who just said it. You're the one who just said it.
What they did. I mean, I've seen what.
No, they did it because of their size. You just said this exact same thing, and now here we're playing the same game where like I'm gonna put this conversation in front of you, and you don't want to have the conversation when you just started it.
What would that do different for Kobe?
It wouldn't do anything different for Kobe because he already has that size. He's the smallest out of that bunch. He's the smallest guy out of that bunch. Okay. And LeBron's the biggest. Magic is the second biggest guy there, right? If you take that advantage of physicality and size away from them, what does that do to Kobe and Jordan?
Nothing.
You talks about skill set. You just talked about skill set. Their skill set would be higher than theirs.
But
Their
they
size is their
they
advantage.
adjust that all these players that play. Dude, this is not what we're doing today. All of these guys who play in the league adjust their skill set to the body they have at the given time. You know who's done that better than anybody else and has adjusted their game? LeBron. He changed at each place, right? And take away that. You know who adjusts? Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd got slower. Everyone talks about, throw it back to somebody who's not even in this discussion. Andre Miller. When he came into the league, he was skinny, he was quick, he blew by people. The end of his season, he was a back-to-the-basket point guard who killed people his size in the block. You adjust to the
You
body.
just brought in Andre Miller into this conversation. I'm going to go back. I'm going to switch the conversation to big guys. Let's switch the conversation to big guys. Let's just take Shaq, Hakeem, Tim Duncan, and Kareem. We make them exact same size, exact same weight. Who's the best player out of the bunch?
Who did you say? I wasn't even listening. This is
Shaq, Kareem, Hakeem, and Tim Duncan.
I've got
them exact same size.
I've got them in the exact same order.
I mean, skill, Tim.
Wait.
I mean, power, Shaq. There's so many attributes you can do.
Wait, Zico, to answer your question, the most skilled of that bunch is Hakeem Olajuwon. And
he's the smallest.
And
ironically, Kobe's the most skilled of that other bunch, and he's the smallest. So take away the advantage the other guys have in size.
Okay, so Kyrie Irving and Allen Iverson are the best players to ever play in the NBA. Let's move on.
Size, they're probably the most skilled. They're up there for most.
I told you, Mike, that Allen Iverson to me is pound for pound the best scorer ever.
I agree. Him and Kyrie. Right
so
there.
okay, wait. So I see Mike's point too in terms of, hey, their body sizes. So we're talking, we're talking two different conversations here too, right? We're trying to equalize the situation between all these players. Okay, but let's take it for who they are, right? Take LeBron and his size, whatever. Kobe and his size, he's still the better basketball player, better skilled, better scorer. Sure, LeBron is very all around. He's, a good passer, rebounder. He does a lot of things great, don't get me wrong. But in terms of just pure skill and excitement, every game you watch with Kobe, there was always potential for something exciting to happen. I don't feel like that when I watch LeBron play, so just from an entertainment standpoint, Kobe is way beyond LeBron in that regard.
But that's a personal subjective thing, like all of these top guys.
Of course, yeah. and all of it, these are all our opinions, right?
You sit here and just look at somebody and say, okay, let's take away what they were best at. You take away Kobe Bryant's work ethic, he's Raja Bell. I mean, we could do this with anybody. If you take away their best attribute, the thing that separates them from everybody. I have Kobe at 11, right? We've been through this. But if you're talking on work ethic,
I think I'm going to leave the podcast now. Okay, thanks for having me.
Let's get into see, like, this is the same feelings, right? This is every podcast for me, so I have to argue it, and I have to chime in every once in a while because I have to dig at him.
No way, he's 11. Because wait, let me ask you this, Mike.
Who's your number one?
What do you have, Michael Jordan?
Jordan's 1, and Kobe's a replica who's not better than him.
Kobe is a replica of Jordan. If Jordan is 1,
Jordan 2.0.
He's a worse version.
Not even
version.
No way. He's got a much deeper. I mean, again, that's a different NBA. He's got a much deeper bag than Michael Jordan. Think about that for a second.
Listen,
Mahroze. Mike is missing the point.
Listen, you don't need a bag. If one thing works every time you do it, why do you need to do something else?
And Kobe
that doesn't make you the best
thing.
player. That doesn't make you a better player than someone. If I'm playing against you one-on-one and all you're doing is posting up every single play, does that say Mike's a better player than Zico?
No, but if I play every single person that ever played in the NBA and all I do is post them up and score every time and win every game and win 6 championships and get 6 finals MVPs.
Look, Michael Jordan.
So then why do you have Wilt, Kareem, and Bill Russell in your top 10?
I do have them in my top 10.
And Bird.
But your argument is basically going against that.
In what way?
You know what? You say stuff.
No, but going back to
Mahroze, sorry to cut you up, bro.
No, go ahead.
Bottom line is, if Jordan's number 1, and the person that came to him the closest to being like Mike, take away the nuances of what he's better at in dissecting the game. If he's not 1A and 1B, 1 and 2, you don't drop him all the way to 11. Talk about, oh, you don't deserve to be in the top 10 because you're because you're what am I gonna call it? A photocopy
He wasn't.
of the best of all time.
And Omar, you heard me start with that when Zico posed the question. I said if you have Jordan 1, Kobe's 1B.
All right,
Where's Tracy McGrady? Because he was.
I'm gonna lay it off.
I'm
gonna lay off Mike a little bit now. I think we got to him quite a bit. So
Tracy
tonight's a success in my eyes just for that.
Tracy McGrady's the same player. Where's he?
No, he's not.
Not even close.
Not even close.
And that's where Kobe is compared to Jordan.
No,
He's
Tracy McGrady was 6'8". Tracy McGrady was 6'8" and had a 7'2" wingspan. You're talking about God-given attributes versus the actual talent. Kobe Bryant was a
Tracy,
better
according
player.
to Ahmad, is one of the other aliens that we're not going to talk about today.
It's like the stars have to align for Jordan not to get hurt, right? Not to, not whatever it is, score the right baskets. Your stars have to align. Unfortunately for Tracy McGrady, the stars didn't align. He got hurt,
Oh, so wise. Wow, I love it.
You know what I'm saying? You could have so much like talent like May, he should be on the Clippers right now.
There you go. There's no skill involved.
Yeah.
Stars align and you're the right astrological sign, you're up there.
Dude, I'm telling you, stars have to align. That's all that matters.
All right, guys. I'm gonna bring us back to the commercial.
By the way, I'm on live. People are asking me to take your shirt off, man.
They got to subscribe to the premium podcast for that.
I'll share that link.
OnlyFans, dude.
I'll share Mahroze's OnlyFans link below on Instagram and on YouTube. So
I mean, just for the people, it's just onlyfans.com/Fresh Jive Podcast. There it is right there. I actually registered it just in case.
Asif Akil, Jay Sheikh are both asking you to take your shirt off right now. There's not many girls, but a lot of guys.
I don't know if I'd get banned from YouTube for that though, May.
Yeah. We'll save that for our podcast. We don't want to alienate the no pun intended the viewers for Zico.
Wait, I thought that was the plan. We take our shirt off during midway.
All right, Zico, we'll pass it back to you.
All right, guys, let's get into the meat of this podcast. Like what we did on Mahroze's episode where we talk conspiracy theories, we're gonna do conspiracy theories on this episode. I listed 25 conspiracy theories in the NBA that we can joke around about. Some of them we might talk about a little more. Some of them we might just laugh out and move past. There is somewhat of an order to them. I felt like an importance, especially when we get to the top 10. So we'll start it off like this. I don't know. You guys each have the list. You guys want to take turns reading it off? You want me to read them off and then we just talk about them? What do you guys want to do?
I said probably.
Why don't you orchestrate it, Zico? You MC it.
All right. So coming in at number 25, we have Jimmy Butler is Michael Jordan's illegitimate son.
Oh, yes and yes.
The thing is that's interesting too because along the same lines, a lot of people say Ant in Minnesota is Michael Jordan's son also. They put pictures side by side and they try to compare their face structures. But so I don't know where the basis is, but people think Ant is Michael Jordan's son as well too.
The basis for this one actually happens to be that
right or something.
Jimmy Butler, the year he was born, people actually look back 9 months. Okay, they don't know who his father is. He doesn't know who his father is. They look back 9 months, and it just so happened the town that he was born in or conceived in, Jordan just so happened to be there at that time. So Jimmy doesn't know who his dad is. His mom doesn't talk about it. A lot of people have talked about this. They said Jordan was the kind of guy that, he got around. He basically could get anyone at that time, right? Any woman he wanted at that time. So, it's something a lot of people have talked about. If you put their face structures next to each other, they really do look similar. Same body size. I think the biggest difference with Jordan is his arms are longer and his hands are bigger. Mike, Omar, what do you guys think of that?
I think that's just something people want to be true, just so they can latch onto something. That's craziness.
I mean, Michael's real sons, their greatest accomplishment right now is Larsa Pippen. But
no, it's a trophy home. Get out of here.
but
I'd rather be inside of a trophy home than Laura Pippen.
but I also heard that It's not far-fetched, man. I mean, um, me personally being around certain NBA players and not to say names, I know kind of what happens and what the get down is. So nothing's far-fetched.
Hey, we didn't hang out with you. I've been hanging out with this lame old Mahroze over here.
but but it's not far-fetched, right? So unless they really surrender to a DNA test, it's always going to be a conspiracy and a possibility. But they do resemble each other. So
What's crazy though is how Jimmy Butler's mom hasn't chimed in or given him any information. Why wouldn't she talk about that? I don't understand that.
I don't know, that's what makes this kind of interesting. And
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead, Amon.
I say, can we go around say who thinks it's true and who think it's false? But go ahead, Zico.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think it could be true. When you think about like Dwight Howard has like freaking 18 kids at this point, like it's very possible that some of these guys have illegitimate children. Like now I know a lot of groupies are like dying for a chance to get hit up by an NBA player because it's a paycheck, but maybe 25, 30 years ago.
Hey, it was probably even worse then because you had no cameras, no
Right.
Instagram, nothing. So you really don't
But back
know.
then, I would assume that'd probably be a little more shameful, like to have something like that happen. So I could see a woman being quiet about it.
No, that reason you just said right there, that money, if it was Michael Jordan's kid, she would have went after him a long time ago. Plus, we've seen Michael Jordan's kids, and they can't play basketball. So I don't know why we think this.
Dude, and Michael Jordan is one of the greediest, most stingiest person in the world. So trust me. Well, let Zico keep going with some of these conspiracies.
Right, there's more coming.
Nobody wants to come near Michael Jordan under certain circumstances.
It's
false.
I was thinking it's false. Mike thinks it's false.
Yeah, before basketball, the mom, I mean, as any of us will be trying to be getting that DNA test to prove that she's Jordan's,
Unless Jordan, made her sign something, you got to be quiet, and he's shuffling money to her this whole time.
Hey, and NDAs don't only apply to legal stuff, right, Mahroze?
Mahroze knows
exactly.
the technicality behind this.
Hey, we have a legal expert here. NDAs are applicable on anything.
Yeah, but NDAs expire.
We'll go
all right, we're gonna move on
all
here
the
now.
NDAs that Mahroze has.
hey, I can't talk about those. I signed an NDA about that too.
All right, moving on. Number 24. Brent Barry's wife, Tony Parker, and Eva Longoria. As you guys remember, Tony Parker was kind of on top of the world, winning titles with the Spurs, dating Eva Longoria. And all of a sudden, they have a sudden divorce. And apparently, Tony Parker was sleeping with his teammate, Brent Barry's wife. And it turned into a big mess. So Brent Barry's wife says it's not true. Brent Barry said that he did see it. Brent Barry also attacked Tony Parker in practice. There's a big mess behind this. So what do you guys think of this story?
Yeah, this one broke up a whole franchise. This is true for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Hey, and Tony Parker's French. You know how them French dudes get down.
The thing is, I haven't seen Brent Barry's wife, but I would love to see a picture of her, because if he's cheating on Eva Longoria for her, she's got to be money over there, right? But I think it happened. There's so many. I mean, and then we're gonna touch on a couple other stories of NBA players cheating with their teammates as significant others. So
I mean, actually, that one's next.
Who told Mahroze the catchphrase for pass first, shoot later? It's already touching on things.
Oh, yeah, Mahroze, we got to be careful on what we touch on in this show, because apparently every time we say it, it's like something dirty. And
okay, perfect. It looks like I'll fit right in over here then.
All right, number 23 is another love triangle. We have Steve Nash, Leandro Barbosa, and Jason Richardson, excuse me. So I don't know if you guys know this story, but Steve Nash had been married to a wife who Steve Nash's wife his wife was white, and they had a baby who ended up being black. And Steve Nash thought Leandro Barbosa was sleeping with his wife, and they had a little incident between each other. And in the end, it was found out that it was actually Jason Richardson who was actually also sleeping with the wife, and he ended up being the father of that child. Steve Nash had a divorce. All those guys kind of separated and went their own ways. Thoughts on this?
I don't think this falls under conspiracy. It sounds like
Oh
it's
yeah, this.
Yeah, take that off the list, Zico. That's
are
a fact.
facts.
Well, the
Maybe this-
conspiracy behind it was it Barbosa or Richardson? It is proven now that it was Richardson. However, people still assume that she was sleeping with Barbosa and more teammates of Steve Nash's.
And-
So
they-
basically, you're calling Steve Nash old wife a flip.
That's as politely as we could put it, right?
She was the team mom.
Exactly.
And didn't
All
they
right.
trade Jason Richardson right away after that whole thing got uncovered, right?
Did they what?
They traded Jason Richardson.
And Barbosa shortly after that as well. So yeah.
And again, I don't know if you have this on your topics. How about Matt Barnes' kids being coached by
Derek Fisher's. Yeah.
Derek Fisher at the moment? Right?
It's not on my list because I didn't think. I mean, there was the scene where Matt Barnes came to the house and wanted to attack Derek Fisher.
But
which-
that's
Right.
not a conspiracy though, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Everybody
just saying, yeah, that happened, and then like, I'm
Well,
just saying.
that tells you there's some maturity on Matt Barnes's end. You know?
I mean, he's got that ESPN contract.
You know, there's some
Doesn't show maturity.
That's just a mature.
Come out with that ESPN contract with the Disney. That's what it is.
That shows lack of guardianship. He doesn't get to make his decision.
Look, man. If you start talking about all these NBA girlfriends and wives, you know, it's a rabbit hole that you don't want to go into because there's a lot of things that happen.
But
Yeah, I
And
think the
so-
crazy one is when they're
Omar's got
sleeping
some
with multiple
stories.
players. Yeah. I think when they're sleeping with multiple players, that's when it gets dicey. Like Barbosa denied that he was sleeping with her. Nash claims that he was. It's a total mess. All right, moving on. We'll get away from the love triangles. Number 22. This one's a funny one. The Morris brothers, the Morris twins, Markeith and sorry, what's the other one? Markeith and Marcus. Yes.
Marcus and Markeith Morris.
They reportedly switched places at some point during their careers, possibly more than once. One game in particular, which was the most noticeable, was game one of the 2017 Eastern Conference semis between the Wizards and the Celtics. Markeith was actually injured for that game. He had hurt his ankle the game before, but in that game, the guy actually went off, which Markeith has never really been a scorer. He's always been more of the defensive brother. And Marcus was the scorer. And in that game, I believe Marcus ended up having about 18 points and decided a victory for his team.
I remember hearing something about that it actually happened. So it's not far-fetched because for most people that don't follow the NBA and know this, there was an article about them or documentary that I watched where they actually have the same identical tattoos.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know that, like everything on their body, what we can see, pause,
Easy.
is identical.
So
yeah, their stories
these-
are pretty wild. They've like literally said like that they've like switched places like with girls.
yeah, this is
Yeah,
I've heard that.
It's 100% fact. They said they switched for tests in school.
They
They were-
never agreed to that game.
Team Rose have done that as well.
So, I mean, I don't know if everyone on here knows any twins. I've known a couple of sets of twins. They've switched places for things. This happened for sure, 100%.
Yeah, but they never agreed to that actual game. So
Yeah,
we
but-
don't know if it was that.
I mean,
What
they're
would
never
happen?
gonna say
Do
they
you know
did
what would
it.
happen
they're
if
never
they
they're never
did
gonna
admit to
come
that?
out.
Yeah,
and
you can't
admit-
admit to that.
Yeah, they're never
I
gonna
know,
admit to that.
I know, but like that's the whole conspiracy theory. Like we can only assume at this point if they did or didn't.
No, we're all adults here. We know.
You know what? They're both still trying to get those veteran contracts. They're still trying to hang on for dear life to play in the league. Let's just wait till they retire and they're in their like 40s and 50s, and let's see if somebody actually asks them that question if they could finally admit.
When
No,
they're-
but Zico, you hit it on the head though, because Markeith has
Pause.
always been Marquise always been the more defensive player, and Marcus can shoot threes and score a lot better. So 100%, I can't. I mean, Marquise is a terrible shooter. That's why I think when the Lakers signed him, and I was like, oh, good, they got him over there, and
Got the wrong one.
they got the wrong one exactly.
All right, moving on. This is where it starts getting a little more interesting. I'll leave it at that. Number 21, Andre Iguodala threw the 2013 series with the Warriors versus the Nuggets because he planned on going to Golden State and leaked information to Mark Jackson. The information that he actually leaked was that the Denver Nuggets were actually telling their players to be hitmen and take Steph Curry out of that series. He also gave him more information. There's actually an interview with Mark Jackson stating that he has inside knowledge of what the Denver Nuggets were trying to do. And Iguodala that series played terribly. Comes the offseason and he literally signs with the Golden State Warriors. So yeah, I think that was a really interesting one. To hear a player throwing a series and then going and signing for that team is something that I don't think we're going to hear too much of. Thoughts on?
No one wants to jump in here, but Iguodala is a good player. Could he throw a whole series on his own? Maybe, probably not. I think it would take a little more than Andre Iguodala to throw a whole series. Did he give him information? Maybe, but again, if that information's, hey, they're going to target and try to hurt Steph Curry. If you're Steph Curry, how do you avoid that? If you're playing,
there was more. Like apparently, he gave him like game plans and everything.
So the thing is, I don't know. That's a tough one for me to, because at that point in his career, he didn't have any ties or allegiance with Golden State, right? So it's hard for me to. I mean, it's hard for me to think he would do that. Versus when he left Golden State and went to Miami, and maybe if they had a series there, I could see him like he still has bonds with all the Golden State Warriors. I could see him doing it that way. But at that point in his career, he didn't have any connection with Golden State at that time for him to like, hey, let me feed them information. And at that point, also, he was still a very good player, very productive. So he was going to get signed to a team out there looking for serviceable player off the bench, or even I mean, he was still starter capability at that point too.
Yeah, and they weren't
I don't see the real gain from him doing that. He was a service. Well, I can't even spit the word out right now.
serviceable.
But you guys get, huh?
Serviceable.
Serviceable. Thank you, Mike. Player that I didn't think he would have to do something like that to actually, be signed. I think there would have been teams out there that would have been interested in signing him anyway. So I'm gonna call false on that.
Amadi?
Yeah, false myself too.
Calling false.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I was just thinking, we're talking about so much basketball. I kind of want to play basketball.
We definitely need to get together and just like go 24 hour. We got 5 guys here right now. We could run the courts.
Yeah.
All right, on to number 20. Clay Bennett moved the Seattle Supersonics to Oklahoma City to cut overhead costs of running the organization, and David Stern supported it. This one kind of blows my mind, and it still blows my mind that Seattle has no team. They're one of the wealthiest cities in all of America. They have people that would pay whatever the cost is to watch those games. They were doing amazingly well when they were in Seattle. They were going to give the Seattle Sonics a new arena, yet Clay Bennett, who had bought the team, moved them over to Oklahoma City. And at that time, I believe in Seattle, the minimum wage was like $13. And in Oklahoma City, it was like $3.25. And Clay Bennett, the kind of person he was, he wanted to cut every overhead cost he could. So he wanted to move the team over. Now, the conspiracy theory for this was David Stern knew about it and supported it because he wanted a team in OKC. And because of that, we no longer have a team in Seattle.
I think with that, I think there's some truth to that. But the thing is, Clay Bennett, he was always known as an Oklahoma City businessman. And that's one of the whole things of, hey, he was going to move it to OKC no matter what. And I don't know if it was for the reason of overhead costs, but he wanted an OKC team. I think it's a true thing, like what you said. David Stern knew about it, and he wanted the team in OKC, especially because they tried it out with the Hornets playing there temporarily in OKC, right? For a little bit, and they were like, "Hey, let's reward them." But the whole thing though about Seattle, there was back and forth with the city about getting that stadium, or they were gonna, pay, millions of dollars to upgrade Key Arena, but there was a lot of pushback from Seattle about how much money they were going to give for that arena. So it wasn't cut and dry that they were going to get a new arena in Seattle in the first place, too. Until, hey, now we're going to lose this NBA team, and then they're like, oh my God, we got to do everything we can to keep them.
Yeah, I agree. That looks like it falls more under facts to me than anything. Obviously, they moved. Obviously, it's going to cut overhead costs if you're going to a smaller market. I mean, that's everyone's complaint with small market teams. This screams more of fact than anything. I don't know if this is much of a conspiracy.
Where it gets dicey,
yeah.
but he actually had to sign an agreement that he would not move the team unless the city of Seattle did not adhere to whatever demands were. And city claims that they gave him all his demands, and he claimed that they didn't for the new arena, and that was the reason for moving him, which still blows my mind, because I don't know if you guys ever looked at or seen like what costs are for going to a basketball game. Like we being with the Los Angeles Lakers, like that's our local team, and the Clippers. Laker games are super expensive here, right? Like you can get nosebleed seats for like $300 here, especially if it's a good game. Yet you can go to a New Orleans Pelicans game and you could buy 4 tickets with including food and drinks for $45. I'm not even joking. So like a family of 4 could literally, mom and dad could take their 2 kids to a game for $45, and yet that team stayed in New Orleans where they're not profitable and they lose money, and the rest of the NBA has to funnel money to them to make up for what they're losing. And yet you moved Seattle. So like, had they moved New Orleans, would have understood it. The fact that they moved Seattle just blows my mind.
Revenue sharing. That's a smart move. I mean, he's just getting money to do nothing. I mean, OKC is a good team. They've had a good history as far as team wise. As far as money and revenue coming in, obviously you're going to make more in Seattle for all the reasons you mentioned. There should be a team in Seattle. I'm sure there will be at some point a team in Seattle. But if I'm an owner and you say, hey, you can go make more money if you move the team, all these guys want to make more money.
Well, that brings me to the next number 19, the Zion Williamson lottery. As we all know, Zion Williamson plays for the New Orleans Pelicans. Right before that, Anthony Davis had been traded to the Lakers. He had demanded a trade to the Lakers. Anthony Davis was actually the #1 pick when New Orleans started their franchise there after Chris Paul left, ironically. This team keeps getting things kind of going their way. Like once that player gets sick of being there, they leave, they ask for a trade, and what do you know? Lo and behold, they get a #1 pick. And so now Zion Williamson's in this situation where he wants out. He's not happy, whatever's going on with him. The same thing kind of keeps happening over and over with this team, and yet they get a #1 pick out of it. And during this lottery, it was the most interesting lottery I've ever seen, because I think the New Orleans Pelicans had like the 7th best chance of winning the #1 pick. And the New York Knicks, I believe, had the #1. New York Knicks end up getting the 3rd pick. And New Orleans gets the 1st and Memphis gets the 2nd. Then the irony is the 2 markets that have the lowest profitability get the 1st and 2nd pick. And yet here's a market that's making you money, even though they suck every single year, and they don't get it. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that draft was rigged?
But is New Orleans, that was the one that was owned by the NBA at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get into that a little later too.
And that's and any team that gets like the NBA taking care of them, you can't put anything past them. And I can't remember the list. I'm not looking at it right now. I hope we have that Chris Paul veto trade on that conspiracy thing. Yeah. But whenever the NBA does something like that, it's not far-fetched what the NBA can do for them.
I mean, okay, so regarding if it was rigged or not, I mean, who's to say? I mean, they have audit companies like in the Big Four consulting, like overseeing the draft, right? So you kind of have to rely on that, right? I'm looking at the list of percentages. Could you imagine if the Lakers had won that? Because they had a 2% chance of winning the number one pick. So 2% is still a chance, right? So if the Lakers had won the number one pick, everyone's going to be throwing their arms up in the air like, oh my god, that's crazy, how did they win, but they do have a chance, right? So I mean, the Pelicans, they're, what you said, they were the seventh best chance, and I mean, it's not insignificant, right? They still have a shot at it. So I don't know, I guess I like to believe in that they're being honest about it. Maybe that's me being naive and about this whole situation, but they lose their best player in Anthony Davis. So of course they're not going to be as good, so their chances for the draft are higher. But like you said, they weren't in the top three, but yet they still won it. But again, they still have a chance to win it.
So, do you think the government's more truthful than the NBA? Because obviously the government's lying about aliens. So do you think aliens may truthful about the government? That's what you're basically saying.
The thing is, the NBA is a business too, right? The second, I mean, and this goes to a couple
You
of
were there too.
Yeah.
right. Well, no, I mean the government's not a business, so that's a whole different thing here, right? So the NBA is a business, so I think they want to be transparent. They risk alienating all of their NBA fans if it comes out that, hey, they're rigging things and things are not up to what they should be in fairness, right? So if that ever comes out, they're risking a billions of dollar business in industry here for what? Just because you want to give the best player to this team? I don't think they're going to risk that.
And I don't think that Mahroze, I actually, disagree with that statement, because in part more discussions we're going to have here, we're going to pinpoint how there's been a lot of other stuff that could influence fan base, but it hasn't stopped them.
Like
You know? So here's a perfect example. Vegas is rigged, right? Everybody still goes to lose their money. So at the end of the day, I hate to say this, but people are sheep, man. It ain't gonna stop. It ain't gonna stop.
Well, and if you could redo that draft, right? Would you take Zion number one?
I would have taken Ja. I would have taken Ja at that point too, to be honest with you. Kind of saw Zion.
You know what? That Zico, that's for another episode of reorder of the draft of probably every season.
We'll definitely think about that.
that.
All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna go to number 18. This is a funny one. Delonte West dated LeBron's mother and was the reason he wanted out of Cleveland, or was a reason he wanted out of Cleveland. We all heard of this story. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
I believe it.
I saw that guy being a crackhead and Mark Cuban saved him. Just hopefully nothing but the best for that guy at this point.
Well,
Yeah,
apparently
you started the statement with a big jab, and then you wished them well, bro. That is the most bipolar, double standard, passive aggressive comment you can.
I personally don't think that's true, but you know what I'm saying?
Amaz, you're kind of repping the Delonte West look right now on the podcast.
I'm wearing your shirt. I run his fan club still. I'm trying.
Do I think it's true? I don't think so. I mean, LeBron is such a huge player, a big part of the NBA. His mom would be insane to try to do something like that with the player on the team. I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
I mean, it didn't stop. It didn't stop wives. Why are you putting mothers off limits?
I mean, come on, right? It's someone's mom here.
Hey,
this guy.
hey, I'm keeping Omar away. Hey, Omar, you're never invited over, man. I'm sorry. You're not coming to any family gatherings.
Don't know my Thanksgiving, mate.
What's it called? Omar's gonna see a tweet or a video of me, Mike, Zico, and Ahmad all hanging out at my house for a family gathering. Omar's like, "Where's my invite?" We can pinpoint to this moment.
No, we're gonna hang out with Omar at Foxfire in Adam Hills. Omar knows what's up.
Hey, that place is overrated, bro.
All right, moving on to number 17. This is another funny one. Paul Pierce pooped his pants and faked an injury during the 2008 finals to deal with it. We
Oh,
all
he did.
remember him. We all remember
Oh,
him going out on
he
that.
did. You can see that shark on the white back of the shorts. That was very obvious.
Hey, that clip I chose to skip. I didn't choose to investigate that clip for any.
It was Amon, you didn't even have to investigate that, bro. When you wear white, everything
I'll
is
take
very
your word
obvious.
for it on that one.
But
Mike, you were shaking your head. Mike, come on.
Hardcore Laker fans right here. That's all I got.
no. Okay, you know what? Forget about that
Forget
part.
the Lakers. Like, if it happened to anybody.
Mike, there's no way you can hurt yourself and be escorted on a wheelchair and come back. Even with cortisone shots, you're not going to be able to perform the way you did.
I mean, he was a lot lighter after that, so.
Wait, didn't he come out and say that he had to go to the bathroom, right?
He kind of started denying some stuff with KG, so I don't know.
Yeah, he really.
Because KG called him out for it too.
Who knows?
All right, moving on. Number 16, the process and Sam Hinkie's departure. I think you guys all remember the process. The Philadelphia 76ers, Sam Hinkie became their general manager, and he just started trading everybody on the team. All he wanted was draft picks. They ended up having like the worst team like 3 years in a row, and everyone thought this guy was insane. They thought it was embarrassing to the NBA. All he wanted was number 1 picks, and he ended up getting top 5 picks, I think like 7 years in a row. And he traded some of those away for more draft picks, which is ironic. Better draft picks. And he did end up with Joel Embiid and a few other key pieces that were traded away later on. But the NBA was angry with what he was doing because they didn't see what he was doing. And they actually forced, I don't know if it was David Stern at that point, but they forced the league to take action and force his hiring. And he ended up stepping away for personal reasons and has never been a general manager since. However, the Philadelphia 76ers, as he left, became a formidable team. So thoughts on this? Do you guys see the teams colluding and forcing someone out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to it because, I mean, look, the NBA completely changed the way draft is weighted now, right? To stop teams from tanking, which is basically what he kind of essentially started that whole movement, well, with all the draft picks that he was getting. I mean, he had the whole process was, I mean, I want to say, I mean, successful is relative, right? I mean, I think it was successful if you get a playoff team. Sure, they didn't win the championship, but and Ben Simmons's what's it called, confidence just completely tanked. But the whole process of just, hey, let's wait for all of these guys to mature, let's get these draft picks, I think it worked. But I think the NBA definitely wanted to acknowledge it and make some changes to it. So I think there's some truth behind it.
Trust the process. It's all we've heard for so long. Trust the process. And I think they're still hoping to trust the process. But
I mean, Embiid's nickname is the process, right?
I mean, he was all for it. So he was the one that coined it. Trust the process. So,
I mean, most of the things in the NBA is a whole team vote. All the owners got to agree. All of them got to get together. So I'm sure there was at some point they all got together and said, "Hey, you got to get rid of this guy." I wouldn't put it past them. I could see this being true.
Sorry, fellas. What did I miss? Which
The
one?
process. Trust it.
do you trust the process, Omar?
Which part? I missed it. Sorry, I got a call.
No worries.
76ers. We traded you away for a little bit for some draft.
You're good. It was a pretty simple one. We're going to move past it. I think you're going to like this next one better anyway, Omar. Number 15, Eric Lewis, the Celtic loving referee with a Twitter burner account. You guys remember this topic. He was well noted as being a big time Celtic fan. Celtics in the playoffs when he refs were 11-2, and he was actually dismissed by the NBA. He retired. I'm sorry, he wasn't dismissed. He retired, and the NBA just brushed under the rug because the last thing they wanted to deal with was another Donaghy situation. So,
oh yeah, I believe it. I believe it. The way he abruptly retired and the fact that that most people that are guilty get very defensive.
And the thing is, he was under investigation right when he resigned. And the thing is, the receipts are all there. Like that burner account, the tweets there. Nobody's defending an NBA ref the way that account was defending that. and know the nuanced details of those like plays. Like, oh come on, that was a foul. Like this guy like bumped his elbow. What are you talking? Like nobody is defending an NBA ref.
Not even family.
No,
100%.
got to see his account. See how much money he made after each game.
Yeah, I mean, and that record 11-2 when he refs. I mean, that's.
But see, we're talking about Eric Lewis. But if we're gonna stay on the topic of referees and conspiracy,
Don't get there because
Do it, dude.
more on the list, Omar.
all right, I'll stop there.
Read your text message.
Mike,
On the
All right.
list.
Mike, I'm sorry, I wear glasses. I can't read that small font. Okay.
Click and zoom. Get an Android.
So what are the glasses for then? If you can't, if the glasses don't help you read that.
They're not for the phone. Reading Zico's font 8 on a Word doc.
They're just for looks.
Omar, I think they have settings
No,
on
that's-
the they have
no,
settings
that's-
on the phone for older people to make the fonts bigger, right?
You can do it on Apple too, man. You can zoom out.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, look, I got you. I'm ready now.
We can't see your phone. It goes straight to the background. You know that.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, number 14. This is a fun one. Most of the people don't know about this one. Jaren Jackson. Oh, we just talked about referees calling games and making money off games, obviously, with Eric Lewis. There's receipts for that. Jaren Jackson Jr. and the Memphis Grizzlies statistician. I think you guys remember Jaren Jackson Jr. was actually voted Defensive Player of the Year recently. There was a report that came out that was actually found via Reddit. Some people started posting on Reddit and had receipts. They had videos from the games and everything like that, where Jaren Jackson Jr. was being credited for defensive stats that he had nothing to do with. There was blocked shots, there was steals, all these things. Like he actually had a span for home games only where he was averaging, I think, like 5 blocks and like 3 steals a game. And this went on for like 20 game span until this person on Reddit started posting about it. Well, after that started happening, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s Defensive Player of the Year campaign started growing, and a ton of people started putting big money on him in Vegas. Now, the report is some of those people just so happen to be friends and family of these statisticians. This Reddit post got so big that the NBA had to jump in and review it. Now, the NBA had a report that came out later where they said that this wasn't true because they had 5 statisticians that were all involved in analyzing a game, not just one. But it's actually entirely possible that all 5 had colluded together and planned all these things, which would be a huge marker on the NBA and a bad look for them. So what are you guys' thoughts on this? Jaren Jackson Jr. winning Defensive Player of the Year because of statisticians doing something like this for him to help him get it.
Again, you got to look at bank accounts. If those 5 statistician bank accounts grew, sure, then they did it.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
Nailed it.
The thing is, I don't think this one's true because we have the benefit of video, right? So these stats they can't just take the stats and the video of the games are completely gone, right?
Oh no, they have the video, Mahroze.
No, exactly. That's the
incorrectly
point.
recorded.
Exactly, that's the point. They've reviewed all the videos of all the stats, and I remember reading the report about that when the NBA debunked this conspiracy theory because they reviewed that stretch of games where he had 66 blocks, and they said only 3 of them were questionable, where they might not have been blocks. Otherwise, all 63 are valid blocks in those games. So you can't say, hey, I mean, sure, maybe he had a good stretch, but you can't say they're adding stats when you can review the video and verify the stats, right?
Hey, you can gaslight people, even with video and everything. They could have been there and seen it.
Look at Mahroze Baloch's records in NBL.
Hey, hey, no. Speaking of which, we should review all of Zico's stats whenever Dino was being the statistician there.
I don't want to say it, but conspiracy number 17.
Yeah. No, that's a whole nother podcast for MBL conspiracies. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know if Mike and Omar know about that, but Mahroze and Ahmad actually on their podcast had the conspiracy theory that my brother was bumping up my assists in MBL whenever he did stats, which I think he only did stats like 3 times ever. But
Let's see. The games
Only
where
a
Dino
defensive
was the
person would know how many
statistician.
times.
Hey, hang on. I have a stat for you guys right here. The games, of the 3 games that Dino was the Zico statistician, Zico averaged 35 assists a game. Every other game, he averaged 5 assists. So, I mean, there's a big discrepancy here, right?
no, actually, because somebody did at that time like say that, and I think Amir was commissioner at that time, and they actually reviewed those games, and like I think one of them I did have 9 assists, but the other two were like I had like 5 and 6, and which was like nothing big, and so I didn't understand why people were complaining. Every like time I had big assist numbers, it was someone completely different doing the stats, so it wasn't even that big, but yeah, people ran with it, and
Well,
Hey, MBL conspiracy, another episode.
the
Yeah.
amount of times I was measured to play in that league, it's crazy.
sometimes you're pressured to play in that league.
Measured height.
Oh yeah, I remember that too.
That was
Yeah,
crazy.
they made me measure you multiple times in front of them. I remember that very well because we had a 6'3" and under league, and Mike had to be measured without his shoes and without his socks. I think like 50 times, and they made me
And
do
all
it.
of a sudden now, Mike, in every other league we play in, he's listed as 6'4", 6'5".
And I tell everybody I'm not that tall.
With shoes, you are obviously, but without shoes, no, you're literally exactly 6'3" without shoes.
And Mahroze has a ring in that league too.
I don't know.
That was a good team.
Rose, did you win a title in NBL?
Yeah.
Not in NBL as a player, as a coach only.
Oh, yeah,
Ooh,
Picture.
it only counts as half, man.
how many times did I coach you guys and we got to like the finals or semifinals and barely
Oh,
lost?
I know. One of them was
We lost you there, May. We
You
did hear.
muted. I don't know what number we're on anymore.
Oh yeah, we'll keep going. Number 13, LeBron's ties to ESPN faculty. This is an interesting one because there are multiple people, writers in particular, and also people who are of notoriety that are working for ESPN that got their jobs because of LeBron James. This gets really interesting because no other news source promotes LeBron James as the greatest player of all time as much as ESPN does. So I'm sure you guys have heard of this before. What are you guys' thoughts on this? You guys feel like he's pushing his own narrative, getting people involved to do it?
I mean, I think it's marketing. I mean, it's easy. It could be that, but I'm sure they did it with MJ. It's whoever's the star at the time. You got to highlight, especially LeBron. He's in line to retire as one of the best, right? So when I build him up for that, it's just more ratings in the future. That's what I say.
Yeah. Who cares where his friends work?
Yeah, it's just. I mean, whoever's supposed to. I mean, whoever's in line to be the GOAT, right? They're gonna give him that passage. It's a ratings game. The last seasons, he's gonna, sell out every arena, sell out every jersey. He's gonna, play. Let me ask you: is he staying around to play with his son now? And is Bronny even gonna make it? After that heart attack, the heart thing he had. So I feel like that's gonna if Bronny makes it now, that's gonna be What do you guys think? He's gonna make it or no?
Yeah.
Well, Bronny will make the NBA somehow.
Yeah, I think some team will I don't know if he's gonna get drafted personally. I don't see the potential there. I think the only way he's getting drafted is because a team thinks LeBron's gonna go sign with them, so they'll draft him so that they do it to sell tickets, which I could see a team doing that. for me, I don't see a team in the first round doing that. I don't want to give up a guaranteed contract in the first round. Like if I could do something in the second round and I could take him, then yeah, I would do it too. Just for the chance of either LeBron staying with the Lakers or LeBron going somewhere else. I could see a team doing that.
What you just said is exactly what's going to happen. A team's going to draft Bronny because they want LeBron. LeBron already said it's not about the money. He's going to sign. His contract's up when Bronny gets drafted. He's going to go wherever he's at. He's going to sign for whatever they have available. He's going to play with his kid. It's going to sell tickets. So someone is going to, I don't want to say waste because you never know, but someone's going to take a flyer on Bronny in the first round. He was cleared.
I don't think somebody's gonna take Bronny in the first round.
On the first round. I think
I could see
round.
a late second round, maybe even the last pick of the draft.
No, I could see someone earlier than that doing that. I really could. And I won't be surprised if it's Cleveland Cavaliers. I could absolutely see him coming home again and making a story. And
You're the Detroit Pistons.
I could see Detroit trying to do that. But is LeBron going to go to Detroit? Like that's been a mess.
If they draft Bronny, that's where he's going.
Well, I don't know. We'll move past that one. I think that's a totally different conversation. That's a lot to go over. All right, number 12, the Chris Paul and Scott Foster drama and how many games were affected by it. 13 consecutive playoff games when Foster was crew chief. Chris Paul is 3-17 when Chris Foster refs the game since 2008. Everybody's heard about this. He's made an announcement at this point. Apparently, this goes back a long time. Scott Foster had an altercation with, of all people, Chris Paul's son. And Chris Paul took offense to it. Since then, Scott Foster has been, I've actually seen it. It's bad. I cannot believe the NBA continues to put him on these games where Chris Paul's involved. I think that's a horrible look by the NBA. This is one of those things that actually really pisses me off, honestly. The fact they keep doing that, it's like saying they don't want him to get to a finals, ever win, ever be part of a team that gets to that. He just did it while Chris Paul was on the Warriors, like it was BS. And Chris Paul went off and just started cursing him out, and Scott Foster threw him out for nothing. To me, you either don't put Scott Foster on any of these games or you fire him. This is how I'd handle it if it's my business, if I'm handling it. The fact they're still doing it, it's one of the worst looks I think the NBA has.
And Chris Paul's the head of the Players Union, correct?
He no longer is. I think CJ McCollum is now. We lost May.
Nice.
He dropped out. Yeah, listen. We've all played enough basketball. There's referees. They remember you. They have problems. They have biases. It's crazy that it's happening at this level. I don't think there's much of a conspiracy here. That's just like you said. It's a bad look on the NBA that it's still going on. It shouldn't happen, but it's happening. That's real life.
Omar, someone who's that connected to this many referees and is a former referee. How do you feel about this?
I mean, it's definitely not surprising. And it's just terrible that, the game, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, but the game is being ruined. I mean, just look at just, how quickly players are getting texts in the NBA, how quickly, how soft the game has gotten. It feeds into this, whether you want to call it a conspiracy or a fact, right? It feeds into the narrative that supports people's position against some of these officials having vendettas against certain players and whatnot. I think it's terrible for the game, and it actually pisses me off a lot.
I'm glad you feel the same way about that one. It's one of the worst looks to me, so I wasn't happy about that one. All right, number 11. LeBron, Wade, and Bosh started planning on joining forces in 2004 and then signed the exact same length of extensions in 2006. Now, they were drafted the same year, but usually players have different lengths of extensions that they sign. And they signed the same length, and it's being reported that they started talking about joining forces in 2004, which eventually I believe it was 2011 when they officially signed and joined the Heat. Am I right with that date, or was it 2012?
I don't
Yeah.
know. But
I'm not sure, but how different is that from the Celtics? Again, LeBron is at his peak, Bosh was almost at his peak, but coming down. Definitely Wade was almost at his peak, but how is that different than Celtics? You know, you're telling me that they don't plan to, Ray Allen, like Kevin,
Well,
Kevin Garnett, like
Celtics
Pierce.
they did trade, so like that's
well, but there you're right. I'm gonna support Ahmad's point here is yes, Kevin McHale being in charge of the Minnesota Timberwolves, of course, played into Kevin Garnett getting traded to the Celtics. However, when you get traded when you get traded, it has to make sense salary wise, where you can't just have a lopsided trade. So there had to have been a lot of work done for that. But signing free agents, it's a little different because they can
Well,
just sign, and if a team wants to go over the luxury cap and pay the tax, it doesn't really matter. So it's a little different, but I get where you're coming from. Yes, Kevin McHale played a big role in making sure Kevin Garnett went to the Celtics because he was rumored to be going to the Lakers.
yeah, with Kobe, yeah, I remember that.
And then all of a sudden he's with the Celtics, and then Ray Allen being okay, there goes Mike again. Laker
no.
hate.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm actually I agree 100%. These guys, they're friends. They talk about it. They're having conversations. Yeah. It's, of course they agreed. Is it legal to do in the NBA? No, it's collusion, but they did it. It's
Yeah. Did they collude? Yes, they did.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you were saying, Omar. Same page.
all right.
It's like it's like just like insider trading, right? It's only until you get caught. That's when it matters. Until
All
then,
right.
everything else is
Moving on, fellas. We're gonna go to the next one. This one is an interesting one since we actually heard about it on our show. I was aware of it prior. I don't know if Omar was. But number 10 is Donald Sterling's advances. Ahmad, May's not here to hear this one, which is too bad since he's a Clipper one. May will be back on. He was having issues with his mic. He said he'll be right back on. But Donald Sterling reportedly made advances on players. And here's Mahroze, so we'll admit him really quickly and fill him in.
And when you say advances, what does that mean? Like that picture?
He tried. Apparently, he tried.
Trying to get in the jacuzzi. Same thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
May, hey, we're on
guys.
number 10, and we're talking about Donald Sterling and his advances on players. I don't know if you've heard of that. We did hear it on our show. Keith Kloss actually said it himself that Donald Sterling actually tried sleeping with players, and he was one of them.
Did Keith Kloss say no?
We didn't ask that actually.
Hey, I mean, the thing is, I mean,
put it this way: he didn't last in the NBA or with the Clippers, so that tells you something.
man, I've never heard of that, where he's making advances on players. So, I mean, if you heard it directly from a source who played from him, I'll believe it. I mean, what does he have to lie about something like that?
I had heard it before as well. It's one of those where it's like, you hope it's not true. You don't want it to be true, but when you're hearing it directly from players, then it's like,
I mean,
I'm sure there's more than one reason Donald Sterling isn't,
and
I mean, obviously there was a big one, but I'm sure there's more than one.
yeah, and on that note, I'm saying good riddance. He was a terrible owner, kept the Clippers franchise in the gutter for so long. Now the Clippers have the best owner in the league, so good riddance to Donald Sterling.
And they're still in the gutter.
Nah, come on, Omar, you're in denial, big dog.
Clippers are really good, man.
Look,
How could they be in the gutter? If the Clippers are in the gutter, where are the Lakers at right now? Let's look at the standings real quick.
the Lakers are in the gutter too. I can't wait till LeBron leaves. I've said that on our podcast, and I'll say it in front of you.
Oh please! I hate LeBron. I hate LeBron.
So
Big issues. Yeah, I'm all about. I rock Nike Sabrinas now.
All right, moving on to number 9. We're going to talk about LeBron, the chosen one and what was to come. There's these cycles that the NBA goes through where they start promoting certain players and wanting them to be the face of the league. Obviously, we had Bird and Magic. After that, we had Jordan, who dominated the 90s. And the NBA actually never really stuck with Kobe as being the face of the league.
Why?
And I'm sorry.
Wonder why.
Well, mostly it was due to what happened, obviously, in Colorado. So LeBron James, when he came along, they actually anointed him as the chosen one. And if you guys remember, there was tons, I mean, all over the place. There was these ads with like LeBron arms outstretched, looking up to the sky. Think about white America, which most of the money is coming from at that, and you're basically having someone posing in like cross format representing Jesus, calling him the chosen one. They ran that ad like crazy to promote LeBron James before he had done anything. This is something that kind of bugs me about the NBA. They did the same thing with Zion. They're doing it with Wemby, although I think Wemby's going to be the best player in the NBA at some point. They do this at times. They kind of shove it down your throat. It almost becomes sickening with the way they do it. And they were pushing LeBron to be that. However, LeBron didn't succeed at the start of his career being what they were hoping for. If you guys remember, they were promoting ads, Kobe versus LeBron with the puppets and all these things. They were doing everything they could to advertise a finals matchup between them. LeBron didn't make it 2 times in a row. LeBron did go on to win multiple titles with the Miami Heat, again with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then with the Lakers. However, what do you guys feel about the NBA promoting something like this and detracting from certain players and promoting other players?
I mean, we talked about it earlier. The NBA is a business, right? And you got to always keep on garnering the attention, what the NBA needs. And kind of touching back earlier, Kobe was the face of the league in the 2000s. There's no denying that.
He was. I just meant they detracted from him.
Yeah, of course, obviously. But the thing is, in the 2010s, this is kind of now after his, Achilles injury. It's on the tail end of Kobe's career, right? And even that being said, Kobe was still such a huge draw. But again, NBA is always going to keep looking at who's the next person to promote. And the thing is, them promoting LeBron, I don't think it was wrong for them because I mean, look at all his accolades, and he's the top scorer in NBA history now. So they weren't just shoving it down our throats wrongfully because he backed everything up. And sure, early on, I mean, a lot of people have said he was anointed the king before actually doing anything, right? But he took that Cleveland Cavaliers team to the finals against San Antonio really early in his career. So it's not like he didn't do much still, but he's a beast. There's no denying that, and he's been the face of the league since he came in. That's one of the reasons why I hated LeBron so long, because me being a diehard Kobe fan, I was like, hey, who's this guy taking attention away from Kobe, right? But I don't think it's a business. They're going to keep on pushing all the new young talent that they have. They're probably pushing Luka now a lot, and whoever the next future is. I mean, KD's too old for that position at this point. So I mean, Wemby's the next big thing. It was supposed to be Zion, but injuries derailed him somewhat. But Wemby's this.
It wasn't injuries, Mahroze. It wasn't injuries. It was women, booze, and New Orleans.
New Orleans good eating.
Yeah.
Hey, that sounds like Mahroze's story.
Hey, I went down to New Orleans also. No, but I mean, like we said, the NBA is always going to be looking at the next big thing. They're a business. It's Wemby next. If the San Antonio Spurs players would ever pass him the ball, but yeah, I mean, it's a business, right?
All right, moving on. Number 8, the infamous Chris Paul vetoed trade. I'm sure Mike is going to think that no, it was a great business decision from the NBA and all these things. However, this one has plenty of reason to look at it as being a conspiracy theory because the trade was approved. The NBA had granted, I don't remember, I think it was Dell Demps at that time, who was the GM of the Hornets. They granted him permission to do whatever moves they wanted to do with the team moving forward. Chris Paul wanted the trade. He asked to get traded to the Lakers. And the report that came out was the one team owner that flipped out the most. In fact, there's still a letter you could read that he wrote was Dan Gilbert of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who adamantly refused to let this trade go through. He wanted the NBA to jump in and do something about it, because what the Lakers had done, it wasn't the Chris Paul trade that made this deal so dangerous for the Lakers. The Lakers actually dumped massive amounts of salary, and not only would have been able to make the Chris Paul trade, but they had another trade that was lined up right after that, which would have been Andrew Bynum and I believe Ron Artest to the Orlando Magic for Dwight Howard and Hedo Turkoglu. So we would have had a team of Turkoglu, Dwight Howard, Kobe Bryant, and Chris Paul to combat the big three that were in Miami, which the Celtics had fallen off at this point. They were no longer a title threat. It was Miami being number one, and the NBA didn't want the Lakers to make such a great business move, because Mitch Kupchak, for all the hate he gets, made one of the best deals in NBA history, and it was denied.
So this is not a conspiracy at all. There's no conspiracy to stop this, because, and then the thing is, this is coming from Lakers owner Jeannie Buss herself. I don't know if you guys just saw her interview on the Up in Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes. She actually just addressed this whole situation on a recent interview. I don't know. Have you guys had a chance to see that yet?
I have not seen this yet. I have to see this now that you're telling me.
Yeah. So she provides really good insight about that whole situation. She says there was no conspiracy. What basically happened was, this is during the lockout, right? There was supposed to be no talks of, trades or player movement at that point too. She was actually at an owners meeting with the NBA and a bunch of owners while this whole thing was going down. What she said, what happened was Dell Demps thought he had, the go ahead to make whatever trade he wanted, but he didn't. And that's basically what the whole underlying situation was. All the owners were like, hey, we weren't even supposed to be talking about players movement right now. Well, how did this whole situation happen? That's when the NBA stepped in and said, no, you can't do this. We need to see all the trade offers, what they have. And the thing is, the Lakers trade was not, if you looked at it, the goal for New Orleans at the time was to get picks, to get younger. That wasn't being accomplished with the Laker trade. That Laker trade was not better than the Clipper trade, for example, that ended up happening. They got draft picks, which ended up being Austin Rivers, who was a highly coveted rookie at the time, or a big draft pick, and they got Chris Kaman, who was coming off of his All-Star year. They got draft picks and young players for that. And Chris Kaman was an expiring contract too. So the Laker trade wasn't even better than the Clipper trade. So you can't say, the NBA didn't want them to have that.
So now there's a new conspiracy that Jeannie Buss is just covering up the conspiracy because LeBron's on her team now, and that was why they wanted to shut down the trade so that LeBron could win rings. Is that where you're going, Pico?
Add that to the list.
I didn't have any counter to it. Obviously, I brought this up to talk about it because it's one of the most talked about trades, obviously, in history at this point. It's definitely on a sour note. The weird thing was, Mahroze, is I do know about that, what you're talking about. However, right around the same time, another team had actually made a trade. And this is where the counter argument came. Well, why were the Lakers not allowed to make the move, but this one was approved? Why was this one such a big issue? And there were draft picks involved in this trade.
Yeah.
And at that time, the Pelicans did receive Kevin Martin, who at the time was the best player in the trade, next to Chris Paul, after Chris Paul. And they also received Lamar Odom, multiple draft picks, and there was one more player. I don't remember who else was involved in that trade. So the fact that one other trade was approved, but this one was denied.
So I'm trying to remember. They didn't have Gasol yet, right?
They did have Gasol. Gasol was traded in that trade as well. Gasol was headed to Houston with Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry and Gasol were headed to Houston. They were going to be there. And it was a 3-team trade. It was Houston Rockets, the Lakers, and the Pelicans. Pau Gasol was headed to Houston. Lamar Odom was headed to New Orleans. Someone else from the Lakers was headed to New Orleans, one of the younger players. I think it was Shannon Brown.
So if that trade goes through and you don't have a Dwight Howard, Hedo Turkoglu, and we saw how Dwight Howard worked out in the Lakers, obviously different circumstances.
Years later,
all of those things. But seeing Chris Paul's a good guard. Do we really think the combination of Chris Paul and Kobe was better than Kobe and Gasol?
No,
That would have made the Lakers a better team.
no, but the whole thing was, Mike, they also cleared cap space where they would have still been able to sign one more player. So whoever they would have signed, like, you don't know like what the team would have looked like. Actually, at that point, I do remember it was also being rumored, which Glenn Big Baby Davis was available and wanted to
The
sign
Lakers
at that time.
And,
So
and
right, yeah, that was like who they talked about. It would have been Dwight Howard, Glenn Davis, Hedo Turkoglu, Chris Paul, and Kobe Bryant, and like that would have been the team that they would have had moving forward that season.
and
that team would have sucked.
No, I mean, keep in mind though, Dwight Howard was the premier big man at that time. He was
Right, but Mike, I don't think you're understanding. You're looking at it from a player's perspective. The Lakers dumped the Pau Gasol at that time had, I think, like 4 years remaining on a huge contract. Lamar had 4 years on a
I
huge
get all
contract.
that.
This was a money situation, not a player situation.
I get all that, but we're talking about from a team personnel standpoint. That doesn't make the team better. Those personalities clashed. It doesn't matter how good or bad Dwight Howard was when he was there. He still would have had the same personality, and that would.
Sorry, I'm going to tell you right now, Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, and Kobe Bryant, go watch them when they played in Team USA. Chris Paul and Dwight Howard were close friends at that point. That team would have dominated, whether you want to say it or not. Would they have beat the Heat? I don't know. I'm not going to say they would have. However, I think they would have gone to the finals and played against the Heat.
And Mike, it's unfair to judge Dwight based on his first stint with the Lakers because he was coming off back surgery. So you can't say he wasn't going to be productive.
I'm not judging Dwight Howard as a player whatsoever. I'm saying the personality of who Dwight Howard was isn't going to change. Dwight Howard was a phenomenal player. He's completely underrated in the history of the NBA. For people to say that AD was better than Dwight Howard was in Dwight's prime is crazy. Yeah. But he still wasn't that hardworking, dedicated, everything serious that Kobe was.
Right, but at that time he was also in his prime, so it was like
it would have clashed.
I don't think they would have clashed. But I don't think they would have clashed because of Chris Paul. When you have a guy who's going to distribute the ball like Chris Paul, that's why I don't think they would have clashed.
And Chris Paul is just as competitive too. He has that competitive fire that would match Kobe.
Honestly, Chris Paul you're talking about Kobe having an issue with Dwight. I think Dwight would have had more of an issue with Chris Paul because we all remember how hard Chris Paul was on Blake Griffin, on DeAndre Jordan. Like he was hard on every big man he had. If you think Kobe would have been the issue, like I think Chris Paul would have been more of that issue because at that point he was in kind of like his a-hole mode where like teammates hated him for a long time for the way he was treating them. So
and Kobe, I mean, at that time, and Dwight was a top tier shape. I'm not saying Dwight is anywhere near Shaq, of course, but that's all Kobe wanted. Someone to rebound and fucking dunk that ball, throw that up there, and someone to get it and just dunk it, And Dwight was ready at that moment if they would have got him, I don't know. I feel like that's who Kobe wanted Shaq to be like as in like health wise,
Actually, there was one report which I read. This is interesting to me that ties to this. The Lakers asked Kobe, who do you want us to get you to be your teammate? Like, who do you want? And he actually said at that time, I want LeBron. Because he felt like him and LeBron would absolutely dominate the league, kind of the way Jordan and Pippen did. And had it happened, it would have been crazy. Obviously, Lakers had no chance of getting LeBron. They told him, it's not happening. We can't get you and him on the same team. Who else do you want? And the next response was he wanted Chris Paul. So that was why the Lakers were hell-bent on Chris Paul. Kobe loved him when they were in Team USA. He loved his work ethic and loved his mentality and tenacity. So that was why they went for that Chris Paul trade.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to the original premise of this whole conspiracy that the NBA didn't want the Lakers to have Chris Paul. One thing that I don't know, I mean, and it's been talked about plenty of times, but the NBA was the acting owner of the team, right? So it's not the NBA as the league franchise, the organization that's saying, hey, no, we don't want the Lakers to get stronger. It was the NBA as acting owner that said, hey, no, this trade is not good for us. We don't want to do this trade. Which is reasonable.
Yeah, I still think it was a money issue, which
but the thing is that's
reading Dan Gilbert's email was like when all he talked about was the financial gains the Lakers just made for them to go under the cap and to be able to have all those players. He lost it. It was like, dude, like this is nuts for him to go over that over and over again. So
Yeah.
I think the money for the Lakers to be under the cap, have a team like that, be that competitive, I think that infuriated most teams because Dwight was still on like his like rookie contract extension. And so was
Oh,
Chris.
100%. And that goes to kind of one of the big issues with the whole situation was the conflict of interest. The NBA should not have been the acting owner of that franchise. It's you can't be the decider, the judge, executioner, and all that. I mean, it was just all bad with the conflict there.
Okay. All right, moving on to number 7. The NBA rigged multiple NBA drafts for the Cleveland Cavaliers after LeBron James signed with Miami, knowing LeBron would return to eventually bring a title to Cleveland. I've had multiple people on the inside say this as well. They said that this was part of Dan Gilbert throwing his fits, making sure he gets what he wants. He was apparently a pretty powerful owner in the NBA. Why, I don't know. I don't have that information, but I think they won 3 number 1 draft picks since LeBron had left, and then they had a top 4 pick, which was Dion Waiters as the other one. Obviously, they traded Dion Waiters and Wiggins to get Kevin Love when LeBron came back, but the conspiracy theory was they knew LeBron was coming back and they wanted it to be a competitive team for when he came back to bring Cleveland a title.
Yeah, there's no way they knew LeBron was coming back. If they knew LeBron was coming back, Gilbert doesn't write those letters. Gilbert doesn't.
Yeah.
As far as rigging lotteries and picks, I mean, if we accept this one, we've got to accept every rigged lottery, which I would be willing to believe to some extent. But like Mahroze went through earlier, they got checks and balances for these things. But if they knew this is coming and they were rigging things this far, then they should have been able to, rig their picks to be better players. Because it's
One of them was bad. Yeah.
Waiters-
The thing is, there's so many variables for that to have to work out. Like a lot of people don't even realize this, that Kyrie Irving should have been a LA Clipper. That draft pick belonged to the Clippers, and they, for some godforsaken reason, when they traded, I think it was what was his name? They traded Baron Davis away for I forget who they got from the Cavs, but they traded that
Williams.
pick. Was it?
The Mo Williams? Am I
Oh,
wrong?
Williams.
Yeah, I think so. But they traded Baron Davis away, and they traded that pick, but they made that mistake of not protecting it top 3, which every team would always do. But for some reason, they didn't protect it because they had a really low chance of getting it. That first pick the Kyrie Irving pick was supposed to be a Clipper, and it bothers me to this day.
Because they had that wonderful owner. They had that wonderful owner.
Oh God.
Well, lucky Kyrie that he didn't have to deal with that wonderful owner.
It wouldn't be who he is today, that's for sure.
All right.
Could you imagine Kyrie and a prime Blake Griffin together? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that would have been fun too. Okay, moving on to number 6. Tim Donaghy had money on the Lakers in Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals. This game is talked about. Even Kobe's actually talked about this game. But the Lakers had 27 free throw attempts in the 4th quarter and won by 4. They were down for most of that game. Also, many refs have decided outcomes to games due to gambling, which the irony, our buddy Eric Lewis, we just talked about for before, during this span of these games and after, had 134 phone calls between him and Donaghy as all this stuff was going. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, this was from 2006 to 2007. So when Donaghy was being tried. So what do you guys think of this? Kobe's even talked about this where he said like, hey, it was kind of weird. We did get a lot of free throws. However, they were missing a lot of shots. So like, I don't really know what to say. How do you guys feel about this game being rigged and Donaghy making bank on it?
History of referees, they can change a game in the NBA. They can change outcomes. I think probably easiest in this profession as far as sports goes than almost any other. Maybe football's close, but yeah, they're gambling. They can easily change it. Same thing I said earlier, follow the money, check bank accounts. It'll be right there. If they're gambling on it and all of a sudden after game 6, he's $1 million richer, then clearly it's there. I will easily buy into referees throwing games. Refs are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and to Mike's point, I mean, it's already been proven that Donaghy was a dirty ref, right? And there's been so much. I mean, there's that. I don't know if you guys have watched the documentary. I'm assuming you guys have on Donaghy. I mean, he's those foul calls. I mean, it sucks because it takes away from such a great Laker team with Kobe, Shaq. That it takes away from all the things that they did, and now because all right, he ref this game, and there might have been some legit calls there too, but and were some of them exaggerated? I'm sure they were, because like Mike said, they can easily sway basketball. Like, I mean, a call that can be 50-50, he'll go towards the Lakers and kind of favor them a little bit more. I mean, it's not the wrong call, but maybe another ref may not make that same call. So I mean, it's such a tough situation in basketball to ref it. Like, you can sway it a lot more, and he's the dirty ref that's already known. So absolutely, I'm sure he had some impact on that game.
Marty, how much money did you win that game?
No, I wish. I just remember watching the Rasheed Wallace. I forget, he was on Up in Smoke. I forget what podcast, but he was even talking about it when he found out about like the games that I forget which ref was got busted for. Was it was it him? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it just goes to show you, like, especially nowadays when you have like was it Prize Picks, you have like all these sports betting things, right? How easy it is to manipulate everything, like, to exactly what you want.
All right, moving on. This is where it gets fun. Omar stepped away. I was hoping he'd be back here for this one, but number 5, LeBron James uses performance-enhancing drugs, and because of him, many other players do as well. This is a sensitive topic to Mike. I know Mike doesn't like this topic. However, I'm going to give you guys some context because we obviously all know the story with Evander Holyfield's connection and LeBron James' connection to having the same doctor while LeBron was in Miami, who was supplying performance-enhancing drugs. There's another situation which makes this really interesting. You had mentioned that Chris Paul was president of the Players Association earlier, right, Ahmad?
Yeah.
Well, if you guys want to go back, you guys can look and see when Chris Paul became the president of the Players Association, someone else had put their name in the hat prior to him and was about to win it. Do you guys know who that was? It was LeBron James. LeBron James wanted to be president of the Players Association. However, after some random reason, nobody was competing against him for the position. LeBron stepped down. Chris Paul immediately chose to do it and was granted it because he had no competition for the position. And the first thing that Chris Paul chose to demand on the player's behalf was changing of testing for performance of enhancing drugs, which Chris Paul and LeBron just so happened to be very good friends. The conspiracy theory here is LeBron had nudged Chris Paul into that position so that he wouldn't get his name dirty, since he was having a case already brought up about him in Miami. Thoughts on this? I know Mike.
Well, let me chime in first real quick. We should have definitely Ahmad and I have a good friend of ours named Faraz Sami. We get a message from him on a daily basis practically, claiming that LeBron is on performance enhancing drugs. He sends us pictures comparing his body to other players and his body from his rookie year, this and that. So we see this conspiracy theory on almost a weekly basis. Personally, again, I don't think it's true. Look at LeBron's body type, everything since high school. That's a long time to be using performance enhancing drugs, and to not be tested. Again, it goes back to the credibility of the sport, of the league. It's in the NBA's interest to make sure that everybody's on the straight arrow, whatever. It's going to ruin their
Is
business.
it so, Mahroze?
It
Is
is. It is. It is, because
Is it for the chosen one?
everybody, because second, if they're claiming that, hey, performance enhancing drugs are not allowed in the league, and it comes out that they are using it and they've been doing, and the thing is, it's harder to cover these type of things up because somebody's going to want to spill the beans, or like, hey, I'll tell you guys everything. I'm the one that was hiding all the testing, or I was the one that was doing the fake test for LeBron. Pay
That
me $1
did
million,
happen.
I'll tell you my story.
Oh,
Right?
so that did happen. That was part of the article when Evander Holyfield was outed for this, and there was multiple baseball players. The doctor had LeBron James as his clientele using it. However, the NBA refused to talk about it. In fact, ESPN, who just so happened to have a bunch of LeBron's friends working there, never mentioned it. Fox Sports West did, okay, and they did for a while. Colin Cowherd was the one talking about it the most at that time. All of a sudden, things got really quiet. Now, the NBA, who had invested a ton of money in the chosen one, could not afford to have another Kobe Bryant situation, or we'll get into it later, a Michael Jordan situation. So they've been known to cover certain things up, and they chose to cover this up. Mike's excited.
Mahroze, we talking about cover up, right? You're talking about a guy that came out of high school who was labeled the chosen one, right? The GOAT, the king, right off the bat. Everything has been, catered around him, right? I'm going to use the word catered, right? If you think about it specifically, he's the only NBA player that you can think of that doesn't have a blemish throughout his career.
Oh, never cheated on his wife, yet there's multiple women who've said that they've slept with him.
Okay. and that's why I said a blemish. I mean, if we're talking about any potential for cheating, right? 2, not one speeding ticket, not a parking ticket, right? No issues with alcohol or issues in the club, even though we know he's been in the club. I mean, I remember there was a on ESPN, they had showed a highlight of LeBron, and he was smoking a blunt at I think it was the Cleveland Indians baseball game, and that disappeared. It never was shown ever again. I'm not knocking his PR group. I'm not knocking anybody in LeBron's circle from Rich Paul and Matt. I'm knocking the NBA for it. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing as a team.
So they picked one person in their entire history and said, we're going to protect everything he does forever. So LeBron's going to play
the only one.
He's 80. He's going to play till he's 80 because
he's not the only
everything
one
he does is perfect. Well, that's what I'm saying.
There's other ones that they covered for, which we'll get later.
Why wouldn't do that for Ja Morant? Like, he's a rising star. He's not
because he's not signed.
I don't know.
He's not arguably look, I know I had LeBron further down on my list, but the 3 best basketball players I've ever watched play basketball are Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. Like that's my honest opinion. I'm not a LeBron hater like some people are, but like my whole thing is like, if this is true, and like not just for him, like there's stuff with Jordan coming out too, obviously. If this is true, like imagine what it would do to, number 1, his legacy, number 2, the NBA for covering it up. Like the publicity for them is so big, and they do so much to cover it that.
I mean, it'll be like Lance Armstrong with the running. It'll be MLB with all those guys.
The NBA has a big rug, and they would just sweep it under it, and life would go on.
Oh, so you're saying that does happen?
To the extent that you're saying it happens, it hasn't happened for the last 21 years with one person only.
And when we haven't seen the effects that it really has, like you saw Barry Bonds, like Sammy Sosa, right? When you see those physical like attributions, like change that much. And again, LeBron's been like that.
LeBron's did. If you actually look at when he went
was a kid when he came in, look at Giannis.
I know, but I'm talking about from the first year in Miami to the second year in Miami. I think that's when he started. If you go look, he gained significant amount of weight. That was when his hair started falling out. He started having a ton of back knee at that point. That was the point where it was like, you have to wonder if he's doing anything. And it just so happened like the very next year when he wanted to be president of the Players Association.
So Zico, I mean, reading up a little bit about this whole conspiracy about PEDs, the performance enhancing drugs. They said, oh, in Miami, because the guy who was named in that suit was in Miami at the same time, right? But LeBron is such
No,
a
the doctor claimed that he was on his client list. That doctor's in jail, by the way.
yeah. But I mean, if LeBron wanted, performance enhancing drugs, he could have access to them in Cleveland. He could have access to them in Los Angeles. It doesn't have to be just in Miami. I mean, if he was
Right, but I don't think he started. I don't think he started his career. Like I think the first X amount of years in Cleveland, those were genuine. But I think that first year they lost to Dallas, and then the very next year again, like that's when I started noticing something. That's when I
I
think
mean,
multiple people started noticing something. There was a
I mean,
change.
there's always the stories of the Miami Heat's workout culture. I mean, and maybe losing that finals, maybe let me hit the gym harder, let me train harder, right? I mean, there's all
Of
sorts of
course,
things,
of course.
And
It's a
now,
conspiracy theory.
yeah,
So
and now at the Lakers, he's older, so of course he's not has doesn't have the same amount of muscle mass, even though he's still a beast. They're saying he's lost weight since he came to the Lakers. He's been away from Miami, so I mean,
ironically is he got older. Now the injuries are starting to come. Now all of a sudden he lost the weight and the injuries are coming. Well, is it maybe that he's no longer taking these supplements?
our father time is undefeated, right?
Well, still, I mean, like it's pretty crazy that someone has that length of a career and that minimal amount of injuries. And
The statistician gave his career high in rebounds last night, right?
no, I didn't say that.
It's funny.
What it sounds like.
Mike's
Was
every conspiracy theory against LeBron.
Hey, was Dino doing stats for LeBron also? What's going on?
No, Dino no longer does stats. He's gone off to bigger and greater things, which we don't need to talk about.
Shout out Dino.
All right, moving on. Number 4. The NBA rigged the 1985 NBA draft for the New York Knicks to get Patrick Ewing. This one's a fun one because there's video on it. It is reported that at that time, there wasn't like ping pong balls that like they would literally throw envelopes into like a spinning freaking thing or whatever it was. And the report is there was a frozen letter so the David Stern could feel it. And when they threw the letter in, they like chucked it. So like the end of it bent. And you could see David Stern like rummaging through it and finding this letter and picking it, and ended up being the New York Knicks. This is probably the biggest one to have proof that they rigged drafts. I still think they rigged drafts. I just don't believe some of the BS that comes out in terms of order. So what do you guys think about this?
So this one I'll jump in. Like you said, there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of things that point to it, but this is probably the last time they did it. And that's when all of the checks and balances came in. That's why it went to a lottery. That's why they have multiple things and multiple checks because of this. So this one I believe, but I think this paved the way to change the future ones. So it couldn't be rigged as easily as it was. So true.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one too, right? I mean, did they have an accounting firm looking over this draft, or was that before that whole situation?
It was before that. There was no accounting firm there. So they literally just put 12 envelopes in, something they were spinning like a cage, and you reached in, grabbed one. That's how they used to do it. So
It sounds cool, and if you want to do French rate, the temperature is the best way to do it. As you're feeling it.
definitely it is. And then again, if you look, you guys can watch the video. We can share that video as well with this post. Like you could literally see like the envelope bent. That's the only envelope that's bent. So yeah, I think that one is for real. I think they rigged that one. And I think the biggest conspiracy theory for that all is if they did that one, they probably did more. That's the most obvious one that we could physically.
And the Knicks still didn't win one with
Yeah, I know.
So
Well, Zico, while you're on that one, I don't know if you guys heard of the recent one with Shaq when he was being drafted. Like he comes out and says, "Hey, David Stern asked me if I want to go to a hot weather place or a cold weather place."
Yeah.
He said that on his podcast recently, like I think it was last week. So, I mean, I don't know what the truth is on that. So, I mean, there's some corroborating information on terms of draft.
All right, moving on. The big 3. All right. These 3 get a little dicey. These 3 get into conversations that are not comfortable for a lot of people. I'm hoping none of them get us in any trouble. But number 3, the NBA knew Magic Johnson was HIV positive before it was announced and set up a Lakers-Bulls finals to pass the torch to MJ. I have heard this again from sources. I will leave it at that. And the NBA is very focused on their image. And when they had Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in the 80s running the show, it was at a peak. Larry Bird, his career shortened pretty quickly due to injuries. Mike doesn't account for those injuries the way he does for other people. I'm just going to throw that jab in there really quick. But yeah, Magic was at his prime and the NBA was focused on him. However, the report was that they knew Magic was HIV positive. They didn't want it to come out until someone else had won that title and won it from him. And they knew Jordan was going to be the next big thing. And so they intentionally set up a Lakers versus Bulls matchup. And that series was really questionable from a lot of ends. A lot of things happened. Multiple Laker players got hurt. James Worthy, Byron Scott were both hurt. I think someone even might have hurt their Achilles in that series. And the Lakers lost. They lost a really close game as well. That really turned the corner for the Bulls. And here comes MJ becoming the face. And that next summer, Magic's announced, which is like less than 30 days later, actually, announces that he's HIV positive. What do you guys think about this?
I can agree with the first part. I'm sure the league knew before the announcement. I'm sure he discussed options. I'm sure they tried to figure out the best way to go about it. That probably happened. But as far as setting up a finals between them and making Jordan, Jordan was still struggling to get through Detroit. Obviously, he did that season. I think he had to do that on his own. I don't think they set it up on that side. Lakers still had a bunch of players. They were still a good team, but Detroit just won back-to-back. If you're looking, you can easily just set it up for Detroit to keep going and become a dynasty and win 3 in a row. So I find the second part of that hard to believe.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. It's again, but the thing is, let's look at all the refs that were. Where Tim Donaghy was dirty. That's evidence that hey, they could have swayed certain games to go, to set up that, Lakers versus Bulls. But again, I guess again, this is the naive part of me thinking, hey, there's going to be some, integrity with the league, and it's so you can't make a ball go inside the basket. That's on the players. They're making the baskets themselves. And the thing is, the Lakers were still a good team. Magic was still solid. They didn't need help to get into the finals. They were still competitive. They were the team of the 80s practically, right? So it's not far-fetched for them to get to the finals with that team.
No, I don't think it was far-fetched for them to get the finals. I don't think it was far-fetched for either team to get in the finals. I think it was I think the Lakers fully healthy would have beat the Bulls in that finals. That was my whole thing. Again, Byron Scott was hurt. James Worthy was hurt. James Worthy was actually the best player in that entire series prior to getting hurt. He was actually dominating that season. And, they did have Vlade Divac, who was a rookie starting center, which was probably the only weakness on that team at that point, considering it was a rookie starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. This one's hard. Like this one kind of hits home in certain ways just because like I love Magic so much. He was the first person I ever like loved and like in terms of basketball. And to hear something like this is kind of hard to hear and think about. But I could see the NBA doing something like this just because they're so focused on image.
I got a twist for you, Zico, on the whole Magic and HIV. I don't think he had it. I think that was just a promotion for Trojan.
Oh shit!
Here we go.
That's a conspiracy theory too. Actually, there's multiple people who actually said that he doesn't have it, that it was a false negative, and he'd already announced everything and done everything, but because they wanted him to be the face of,
I heard that too. Yeah, I don't want to say it.
Yeah, that they didn't want him to go back on it, and so his career basically ended.
Look at him. He is as healthy as they ever been.
He's healthy as an ox over there.
Well, there's more that goes into that. Like there's also like people said he did have it and that he went straight to Dr. Sebi at that time, who had reportedly cured multiple people of HIV. Dr. Sebi was murdered multiple years after this. But they did say that Magic Johnson did go see him multiple times for treatment and cleansed himself of it. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. It's hard to know for sure, but it is a conspiracy theory to think about.
South Park did a episode about this. If you guys ever watched South Park, an episode about how Magic Johnson is still alive with HIV. And basically they said it's being around money and a lot of
Yeah.
yeah.
It's that simple.
Oh.
That simple ingredient called money.
All right, moving on to number 2. Michael Jordan's first retirement was a secret suspension for gambling, which led to his father's murder. I think everybody's heard this. I'm assuming you guys have. Michael Jordan stepped away from basketball for 2 years to play baseball after his father's death. However, Michael Jordan had reportedly been in a gambling situation with an actual gang member. He owed that gang member multiple millions of dollars, refused to pay up, and that gang member murdered his father to show him that he was serious and wanted his money. It turned into a big mess for the NBA. The NBA didn't want to release this, so they were going to suspend Jordan. And Jordan, in agreement to not tarnish the NBA's image, agreed to retire from the game of basketball during that suspension. Mike, you're the biggest anti-conspiracy theorist in this group. I want to hear first from you. How do you feel about this one? Because I think everyone's heard about this one at this point.
Everyone has heard about it, and you listen to it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But after, listening to you guys for the last hour and a half, why didn't the NBA just sweep it under the rug and make everything all better and take care of it and keep their face of their league all good and dandy? I mean, no one else was there yet. Why not have them win 8 in a row?
Because I were involved, and they didn't want publicity around the NBA.
They couldn't pay off a couple $1 million under the table.
I'm sure they did.
Covering fees for LeBron, and
but still, in a situation like this, you're going to have to do some sort of suspension, right?
No, but how does that mean? Unless you state it, obviously it's suspension and someone's being punished. But why would you do that and not make money off it, right? The suspension is not clear. It's just like it's on him. There's no reason to punish him when it's not really a punishment, if that makes sense.
Exactly. There's no reason for them to say, oh yeah, this is what he's doing, so we're going to suspend him. No, it's a conspiracy now. It could have been a conspiracy where they kept the face of the NBA playing, winning nonstop, adding to his legacy, adding to the NBA folklore. But yeah, so that's why I don't buy it.
What it did do in that circumstance was give other players an opportunity while he was not there to step up and be part of that greatness that the NBA was trying to pass on to. I think the hardest part, and this becomes interesting because Hakeem was the one who stepped into that role, which there's like issues with this too. Like Hakeem never met Jordan in the finals, which still blows my mind for him being such a great center to never reach that pedestal to go up against him. However, during those 2 championships, Hakeem was the best player in the NBA. However, Hakeem was actually devoutly Muslim and would let people know about it over and over again. There was a lot of people that didn't like that, and they just could not promote him the way they had hoped to promote him as the way they did with Michael Jordan. So there's like stuff that kind of came both ways with it. And then again, Karl Malone couldn't be Hakeem in that situation. Neither could Barkley. Ended up being Ewing and Shaq in the finals. And, the NBA was really pushing that big man vibe going on. So there's a lot of stuff to it. I think it's true. I think the NBA didn't know what else to do. And they did suspend him because they wanted to show that they could punish even him. However, they didn't know how to handle it with the press, and then they swept it under the rug. So,
yeah, I mean, I think there might be some truth to it, but I mean, it's just tough, right? We don't know all of the things that are happening behind the scenes. I mean, losing your dad in that situation can, be a tough tough thing mentally for him. I mean, where he doesn't even want to play basketball, right? So, I mean, there's so many different things we don't have enough information of, but based on this conspiracy, I mean, a lot of things do make sense that add up with this conspiracy, though.
By the way, the reporter that blew this up was actually Colin Cowherd. He talked about this over and over and over again, and he talked about it in relation to the Kobe Bryant trial versus LeBron. And he said at that time, it was a little different situation because when Kobe had it happen to him, there was a bad image on the league, and we had LeBron coming up, so we could just save face and jump to this. They didn't have anyone to save face and jump to when it happened to Jordan. Had it happened to when it happened to Magic, Jordan was there. They could jump from that ship. So it's tough. Like, there was no one there at that time, but they have shown that they do stuff like this. So I don't know. Omar, you got anything?
Nothing on that one, sir.
Omar is excited for number one. Omar is the only other person that knows number one.
Oh boy.
I wouldn't say I'm excited, Zico, because that one is the real. I don't want to call it conspiracy, but it is a common thing that we see in successful people.
All right.
And I think
so
once you hold on before you
state
say
it.
that, but before you state it, a lot of the things that you said on these conspiracy plays a factor from this.
Yep.
And that's going to explain why certain things are the way they are.
Okay. Number one, the biggest conspiracy in the NBA right now is, and Ahmad, you started this off with saying that there are possible aliens in the NBA. However, if we go back to conspiracy theorists, aliens are also another word for, actually, I'm just going to say it. LeBron James is a devil worshiper, and he has a degree of control over the entire league because of it. Now, this is like one of those things that could like shock a lot of people. They're like, what the hell? You're nuts. You're crazy. Oh, there we go. Amadi knows. Do it, Amadi. Come on, speak for the camera so we all know what it is. You got to talk so the camera focuses on you. Talk, Ahmad. Talk.
No. How
there we
about
go.
that? Hey,
Show
Illuminati.
everybody. Show everybody what we got to do.
If Illuminati is there, I'm all welcome to join in.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, those are Illuminati signs, but there's also more that he does. Listen,
666.
yeah, 666.
Yeah.
He has sold his soul, and because of that, he has had so much control over the NBA. I think this goes back to the point at which where he said he wanted to be the richest person in the world and was taking advice from Warren Buffett. I think this runs deep. And the fact that this is going on in the music industry, in the movie industry, whatever you want to look at, any entertainment industry, this is prevalent for everybody. For anyone to think that it's not happening in the NBA is crazy. I think it's going on in the NBA obsessively. I think he's the biggest name for it, and I think that's why he has so much control in the NBA. For someone who thinks that like I'm crazy, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, don't let your kids do that. If you want to know what the devil looks like, and you want your kids to know what the devil looks like, have them start waving that sign around. Like, I never want to do those signs. I never want any part of it. I've seen some of this stuff in action. I've talked with Daylight about some of this stuff in action. It is, I've had a degree of knowledge being around some of it. It's disgusting to me. I know this one hits home for a lot of people, and then some people just don't want to even talk about it, and it's sensitive. So what do you guys think?
I just want to, if number one is true, right? If we're saying that this is the case with LeBron, then why is 5 even on there? What does PEDs have to do with anything? Why would he need PEDs?
Well, you were asking how he sweeps things under the rugs. Well, maybe
No, I'm asking.
maybe it's not the NBA sweeping it under the rug. Maybe it's him, because it's not just him. If you look at the amount of Illuminati in the NBA, it's all over the place. And the fact that he's the head of it, which goes even deeper.
But
the last time LeBron made these signs, do you know when it was?
No, but before you answer that, why do you need performance enhancing drugs?
Mike, I don't think he
Hold your
always was. I don't think he always was. I think this stuff is a process. It's not just like, here you go. You're now a devil worshiper. You're the highest ranks and things like that. I think this stuff is a process. And I think he, at that point, he needed PEDs because he was not able to perform. I think now, as the years have gone on, this is what he is.
Does the conspiracy give light as to when he joined the Illuminati or when he became one of these devil worshippers?
I think he joined the Illuminati when, again, he was talking to Warren Buffett about becoming the richest person in the world. Like when you start having that conversation, there's more to this actually that I can't say, which I'll say afterwards. I don't want to say this next part on the air. However, there's more to it. Because I could get in trouble for the next part. I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for calling him a devil worshiper. There's a bunch of videos on this on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram all over the place. But I think he joined the Illuminati then when he said he wanted to be the richest player in the world. And somewhere along the way, he got deep into it. Where it was, I don't know specifically, but I think it was somewhere in Miami. I think that's when things started going a little crazier for him. And definitely when he got back to Cleveland. You see those signs going crazy while he's in Cleveland. And by the way, the last time he flung those signs around was the night before Kobe Bryant died. The night before he passed Kobe Bryant. If you think I'm joking, you can go look at this, Mike. I'm not just saying this because of Kobe Bryant. I just sent you guys a video as well on Instagram where a person literally yells at LeBron saying, "Why'd you sacrifice Kobe?" Not the only person. Not the only person that has said this. Like that, you guys can do your research for it and see it. This stuff is talked about. And I don't know if I mentioned this on your show, Mahroze, like alchemy. Did we talk about alchemy?
We touched on it a little bit.
Right. So alchemy, there's a common law and practice in alchemy. To get something, you must give something. Like that's like the way of the universe. That's the practice in alchemy. It's the practice in the way of life. And some people say he, being the head of this group, wanted that sacrifice so he can get another title. If that's true, I don't know. I'm just telling you things that I've read, I've seen. It's out on the internet. You guys can do your own research.
He just randomly picked Kobe.
No. Imagine coming to LA and fans will never care for you the way they care about Kobe Bryant. They'll never care for you. We don't care if you are we don't care if you're a better player by ESPN standard than Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is the greatest Laker of all time because that's how fans feel about him. Whether you choose to understand that or not, you're not a real Laker fan.
Well, wait a minute. That might be early 2000s to now fans, but that's not 70s, 80s fans.
Mike, you can go ask. Even Magic Johnson and Jerry West say he's the
pushing
greatest Laker of all
agendas, and now you're going to tell me to go ask
serious?
Magic Johnson.
No, I'm serious. Like they say he's the greatest Laker of all time. So imagine LeBron, who's competing against Kobe, even when Kobe's retired, comes in there and he has to deal with this. And Kobe comes, they don't give a crap about LeBron because it's Kobe. And then why not just get rid of him if you have the power to do so?
Well, if we've seen anything in entertainment as a whole, when someone dies, they just get more popular. So
Not always.
Kobe.
Not always, because some people die and then they're just kind of forgotten. But then some people, because of whatever they built, there's a lot of people in entertainment.
I know, but I don't believe nobody has the power to do that. Nobody has the power to pick and choose like they're gonna end like someone's life. You know what I'm saying? Like
again, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying like these.
It's one thing in like him being like assassinated, but the tragedy that he happened to have, you know what I mean? It's really hard to imagine.
How much have you looked into that? Because there's conspiracy theories about that too, man.
I go into a million different things. That one is hard to go into.
I know that one's hard.
But I haven't done my research. I'll be honest with you. I haven't done my research on
Look,
that.
I mean, there's more stuff that happens with that whole Kobe situation. Like if you go look at what Kobe Bryant's helicopter actually was, he has literally a blacked out Mamba helicopter The helicopter that fell was a completely different color and had a different number on it, which was confusing about why he was flying a different helicopter that day instead of his own helicopter. There's a bunch of stuff that ties into this that's a little questionable. Like, I'm not saying that that's the case. It might not be. I'm just saying these are things that come with LeBron being a devil worshiper and that are talked about because of it. That's all I'm saying.
Kobe
But
had
so, but so
had a
Zico,
helicopter on his own, right?
I'm gonna go against you real quick here. And you think LeBron's sacrifice was Kobe?
Oh no, I don't know what it is. I just said that that's one of the things people talk about.
I got you.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was.
Okay, because maybe LeBron still hasn't given a sacrifice.
Yeah, I know. That's entirely
And
possible. However, he did win the title that year.
If that's the case, if he hasn't given a sacrifice, LeBron, I'm your biggest fan out there. Zico,
Sacrifice Mahroze.
Damn, we got some scary friends here.
Omar can't come to people's family picnics. Rose can't pick a side.
That's a conspiracy there.
It definitely is. I think again, it's a sensitive one. It's hard to talk about. But again, when you see what's going on in the entertainment industry, when you're seeing all the music videos coming out nowadays and what they're looking like, when you're watching these movies with all these like constant themes to them, is it entirely possible that or impossible for him to be part of it? I mean, this is entertainment.
No, but it's just what's popular. I mean, that theme sells, so they're gonna keep going to it. Listen,
That theme sells. That
Mike,
theme does not sell, Mike.
Mike. There is that, but there's also like a turning point, like what Lil Nas X is doing, right? Is something so blatant. You know what I mean? It's one thing being edgy, right? Like that, Doja Cat, like, like wearing a devil costume, blah blah blah, this and that. But like, I don't know if you saw Lil Nas X's video.
Sam Smith.
Huh?
Was it Sam Smith?
No, it's Lil Nas X. He's
Yeah,
like,
I know. And I was talking about a different one.
Sam Smith too one that he did one too. But I'm just saying, there's certain things that like, yes, it makes sense, but also like I feel like some people just try to do it to be a part of it.
Mike, here's a question. Your wife is a religious woman, correct?
Yes.
Does your wife let your kids listen or watch that stuff?
Well, there's language involved that we don't let them.
Okay, but like if something came on like on a TV where you're at a restaurant and that comes on, how would your wife react seeing that stuff? She wouldn't want the kids looking at it, right? She'd be upset by it, right?
My kids are still young. They're not
Right. So, but what are you going to do if you start seeing your kids who, let's just say they're LeBron James fans, start waving those signs around?
But they don't even know what it is, and plus they don't even watch
I
TV.
know, Mike, but those are actually dangerous signs to wave around. Like, how would you feel as a father, or how would your wife feel knowing like that's what that means? Like seeing 666 signs coming up from your kids. Like,
To be honest, I wouldn't know what they were.
okay, that's unfortunately that's actually the most honest answer I think a parent can give, which kind of sucks.
But it absolutely sucks. But to be completely fair, if they start doing things, with their hands, regardless of what it is, I mean, there's a lot more, signs you can throw up than just devil worshiping signs for all intents and purposes. So yeah, I'd go look into what it is and see what it's about and see why they're doing it or why they think they're doing it.
Right.
But
if they just say I saw LeBron doing it.
I don't. This is probably where I differentiate from majority of most people. I do not really care about celebrities, athletes. I don't care what they do in their personal life. I don't care anything about them. I'm watching it strictly for entertainment. I enjoy watching basketball. I don't care if LeBron James is sleeping with everybody, if Tiger Woods is sleeping with everybody. That's their own personal business.
I don't care if Kobe's sleeping with somebody else either.
Huh?
I don't care. I didn't care that Kobe Bryant was sleeping with somebody else.
Right. No, I didn't care either. I just throw it because it's just what happened. It's a blemish, right? So we talk about it. But like with Dwight Howard, what any of these people do, I don't care. It doesn't change anything that I'm doing. But if you go into and you look at it from a religious aspect, right, and you're saying he's a devil worshiper, if he's a devil worshiper and he's doing these things, wouldn't there be a lot more coming his way wouldn't he have all of the rings? Wouldn't he have everything he needed for everybody to think he was the best player to ever play? Wouldn't there be so much more with it? Wouldn't Lil Nas X be a much better selling artist than he is? Or it was his floor so low that by doing this he reached his ceiling and that was it. That's all he could get.
I mean, we could get into stuff religiously, but like, then it gets sensitive,
my
right?
my personal thing is it's half being trendy and half being cool, and then the other half is being actually like about like that what you believe in, right? Like devil like artistry and what will make you money. LeBron stuff, like he shakes hand, all those cool, every player he has a handshake with, all the kids do it. I know that's all fun and stuff. Like the thing that Zeke was talking about, like literally like the gray mason stuff, the Del Warp shit, like particular signs for like to show that you're actually
Don't do
worth.
those, Amon. Don't do those, bro.
Oh my bad, I'm just showing you. But I'm like,
Hey, Ahmad was sitting there practicing in front of the mirror before today's podcast.
Now we
All I
know.
know is Ahmad's camera quality keeps on getting better the more he keeps doing those signs.
hey, I'm watching Young Thug, and I'm learning all the.
So now we know about also double.
I mean, you know why kids do this a lot, right? Do you get slat? You know what I mean? There's a lot of things like you. I mean, I'm sure like if you listen, watch rap, right? You notice a lot of stuff they do, right? Again, half of it's trendy, and then the other half, like you realize what the hell you're actually doing. You're like, whoa.
Well, and I think that goes back to what we said in the beginning of the podcast, talking about aliens, and you start opening yourself up to believing these things. You start seeing it more often if you're open to it. Same thing with a Ouija board. Same thing with back when we were kids, probably Bloody Mary. Candyman, whatever it is, say it in the mirror 3 times. You know what I mean? There's all these things that have always been around, and whether or not they're real or if they're fake, I'm sure everyone's tried it and done it. This is, like you said, some people are doing it to be cool. Maybe there's something more to it that I'm being naive to. That's all very well and true, or could be money. Yeah, those things, absolutely.
That's what it is, Mike.
And
LeBron,
said that
LeBron is already a billionaire.
Yeah, but
He's part of the
so Shohei
1% of the 1% already.
So Shohei Ohtani is doing it too now because he's yeah.
So my whole thing was that I was gonna say was you said like, well, how come he doesn't have more? Well, now we're gonna get into the religious aspect of it. Like, as powerful as the devil is, like, if you're religious, you believe God is real, God's always gonna be more powerful. So there's always that balance to it, good and evil. And
So the devil's got one team and God's got the other 31, right?
yeah.
No, man. The thing is, God's always got the upper hand. You can do all you want, but God's always gonna end up on top. That's all I get. That's why LeBron doesn't have 50 rings. That's my answer to that. I mean, man, it's hard to explain, but you just gotta believe in what's right, and that's what comes out at top.
The thing is, I don't think LeBron's religious belief, even if say he's a devil worshiper, if that's the case, I mean, I don't think his religious belief is going to affect whatever happens on the court. I mean, I don't think there's that power over other people. I guess I don't believe in that. I don't think somebody can have that type of power over anybody else. I mean, his belief is his religious belief. That's whatever it is.
I don't think it's going to give him the power to like win titles, but I believe it does give him a power and influence, which I think obviously he's been the most influential player in this last decade, aside from Steph Curry. They both have 4 titles. And Steph is like this clean-cut religious boy who's tries to keep his own nose clean, even though his parents didn't. Like.
So was Tiger Woods until he wasn't, right?
Right, of course. I know I'm being a little sarcastic there, but yeah,
Sunday Red, who's buying that merch? Come on.
All right, guys, you got anything else you want to chime in with this? Omar, I'm surprised you're that quiet with this.
Yeah, man. Like and subscribe.
I was quiet with it because I just wanted to hear other people's opinion on the subject. You know, and like you said, it's not a surprise what we're talking about. A lot of people talk about it. There's videos out there. You know, Ahmad was sitting there over there doing the whole hand gestures. Those, those are common if you look among certain people that could be allegedly affiliated. You know, you can see there's common hand gestures. So it's not a secret. It's just whether you want to accept that or you want to, you know, roll with it. It's up to you. But at the end of the day, um, it's very clear. There's an issue there, in my opinion, and I'll leave it at that.
It's all about synergy, right? Like, why the same signs, same hand signs are showing up in different industries, right? Why is the same thing happening in unrelated stuff, right? When you put, again, Mike, I'm with you, 99% bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, some stuff doesn't make sense. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
it's the Rock in the building.
You know? But that 1% that ties it, you're like, damn, you know. What's his name? Alex, what's that guy's name who's crazy? He has his own show.
The Republican guy,
Oh, Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, right? Like, everybody thought he was crazy, right? People thought like, oh, all these big guys, like government people, big power people meeting up, talking about, world change. That happens to be real. He was talking about like, I mean, again, 80% stuff is crazy, but 20% of stuff he said it was correct. And it's all coming out now. Like, I'm just saying, man, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but there's 1% or 10% truth to everything.
Yeah, I mean, we went through 25 of these right now, and I would say at least 3 of them are right. So I mean,
Yeah.
the right way, but
I think more than 3 of them were right.
I think this goes back to the bigger the lie, the more people believe you. So I think this leans kind of more into that from my perspective, my point of view. But
Well, if it was a bigger lie, more people would know about it. I think most people don't know about it. So if you want to call it a big lie, it's the same thing as the Jordan one. How come more people don't know about it? Swept under the rug.
Yeah.
We might find out about it like as after LeBron retires and people talk about it more and become braver about talking about it and not worry about losing their jobs.
Or they won't because my my I, my conspiracy is Clutch is going to own the NBA.
I agree with that.
Well, they own the Lakers right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they own the Lakers,
Yeah.
definitely. But they LeBron. I mean, I'm just gonna say this: LeBron is the only player that owns an agency that doesn't own an agency. Come on, you're telling me there's not a hidden document in some vault that says LeBron is the primary majority owner of Clutch Sports? But
Yeah.
You will be when he retires.
Yes, exactly. So,
all right, guys, I'm gonna end the show there unless you guys have any last words.
No, just thanks so much for having us on. It was a lot of fun just hanging out with you guys and talking about all the different topics. I appreciate you guys having us.
Thank you for coming on. I definitely appreciate both of you guys. Again, thank you for having me on your show. I am going to tag your guys' show on our page so everybody can see it, and hopefully you guys get some more followers from us as well. Definitely appreciate it. This was awesome, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
There's nothing wrong with this sign, right, Zeke?
No, we're good there, bro. We're good there. We're good there.
I mean, Australia, right?
Let's go.
That was me and you guys.
Let's
I don't
go.
know. But yeah, no, thanks for coming on, guys. This was awesome. Last thing I got is don't believe everything you hear, right? Only some of it.
100%.
By the way, we do have something we do for our show. At the end of the show, Omar's supposed to call somebody and
not not tonight.
It's a
Definitely
little late
not.
now. Yeah. So we're going to let Omar pass, but I would love to see Omar call somebody and just ask him, do you think LeBron's a devil worshiper? Just to
It
see.
looked like Ahmad was calling up a lot of people with all them hand signals. So
Well, we can always just end the show with all of us taking our shirts off and keeping it going that way. Ahmad, start us
You
off.
get that on your podcast.
Instant ban from YouTube.
That's what we do
Why
on our
not?
podcast.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Thank you guys again. Really appreciate this. Everybody have a great night.
Bye, guys. Thanks
Good
for your
night.
time.
All right, thanks everybody.